perversion and sick. It's degenerate and sick.
Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Thursday primetime edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
It's back like old times.
It's like old times.
8 o'clock Thursday night show. I already remember why we moved the schedule. I am tired, but I'm not going to show it. I shouldn't have even said that. That's not professional. What happens when an actor comes in and they're about to read for a part, to audition? The worst thing they could say is, I'm a little tired today. I'm a little sick today, right? You don't want to make an excuse.
I thought the worst thing they could say is, I have a gag reflex.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know what kind of casting room you ran, but for me, the worst they could do is make an excuse at the top. So I shouldn't have done that. I apologize. The reason we're doing this at this later time slot.
Supposedly, Al Jolson used to do that.
Is that right?
You would get these like farm girls from Nebraska coming into audition. You go, get on your knees. I gotta examine your tonsils there, toots.
Right, yeah. The old days, right? No, the reason we're doing this tonight is because I had to take my kids on a field trip this morning, which was scheduled at the beginning of the year, meaning September, so I could not break that. And then we couldn't do it this afternoon because Russell had a swim lesson. So we've both been exerting ourselves all day. I've been walking around a park in Saratoga Springs all day, and then Russell's been swimming. But we're going to pull it together for you all because that's what professionals like ourselves do. We also have a very special guest joining us this evening, which works out because I don't think he'd have been able to make it in the morning, I assume, because he's a very busy man with a teaching job at the newly opened Columbia University. Yes, that's right. We have a Columbia professor on the program tonight, a cool one of the good ones, as we say. Professor Anthony Zenkus is going to be joining us, yes.
Come for the post-colonial studies, stay for the tear gas.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. Exactly. But you all know Professor Zenkus, one of the most prolific Twitter accounts in our space. He's been on our friends' RBN shows, Misty Winston shows a bunch of times, so we are very excited. We've traveled in the same circles with him for a while, but we've actually never met. And so I'm looking forward to Professor Zenkus joining us. He's going to be joining us in a little while. He has a class, oddly enough, until 8 o'clock. So he's going to get himself situated, and he'll be joining the show in progress. But let's waste no time since we got a lot to get to tonight. We got a guest tonight. We got a lot of campus protest news tonight. But we do want to start out with some breaking news overnight, which Russell has for us now.
All right. Well, first, I want to address some questions. No, I am not learning to swim. I'm learning to swim well. If you've been around for a long time, you might know I used to do marathon cycling. I totally destroyed my hips doing that, so I have to find another method of exercising. So I'm taking up swimming. I always wanted to learn to swim well. Like I can swim, but I can't like swim. So I'm learning to swim. So, all right. First up today, something that is right in my wheelhouse. One might say it's my beat. Second whistleblower dies suddenly. So, I heard actually Discovery Channel to add to their lineup of dangerous jobs, ice road truckers, ice fishing. They're going to add Boeing whistleblower. It's going to be a whole show of Boeing whistleblowers trying not to die by the end of the season.
Makes sense mathematically.
Mathematically, this is the ice road truckers ain't got nothing on these guys.
Yeah.
A former quality auditor at Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems, who turned whistleblower, has died after a sudden illness, his family announced on Tuesday. Funny how that happens. Joshua Dean has accused Spirit of ignoring defects in the production of the 737 MAX, a series whose reputation has been marred by a series of crashes and safety issues in recent years. Dean is the second Boeing whistleblower to die suddenly after John Barnett was found dead less than 2 months ago. According to South Carolina authorities, Bennett died of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, although they are in the habit of using air quotes whenever claiming that.
It's funny, this is like, it reminds me of 9/11, where remember when the first plane hit the first tower, we were all thinking, wow, that could be an accident, but it doesn't look like an accident, right? Could that be an accident? I guess maybe. And then when the second plane hit, everybody knew, okay, this is not an accident. That's like what this reminds me of.
So basically, Dean is the second plane.
He's
Joshua
the second
Dean
plane.
is the second plane.
He's the South
of
Tower.
Boeing whistleblowers.
Yes, the South Tower of Boeing whistleblowers, right? That was the second one, I think.
Yes, I think so. But I'm already purging everything I ever learned to do tour guiding. I never did 9/11 a lot because I always hated it. I always hated that.
Most New Yorkers do hate 9/11.
It always felt dirt.
It was not one of the better days in the history of the city.
I just hated doing that tour. It felt dirty. It felt dirty. It felt like people are there to gawk in a way. And then even at the same time, on the other side, this I'm proud to be an American. You'd get a lot of that shit too. Like either way, I just was not into doing that tour. So I forget what I knew. Dean's death is likely to again draw attention to Boeing, which has been under increased scrutiny from regulators and airlines since an emergency exit door blew off a Boeing 737 MAX in midair in January after it took off from Portland International Airport. Since then, further negative headlines for Boeing linked to safety issues have harmed its reputation, to the point that a majority of Americans would pay more to avoid flying on its aircraft, according to a recent poll. More on that later. Newsweek contacted Spirit and Boeing for comment by email early on Thursday. Dean, then a quality auditor at Spirit, had flagged lax standards and the presence of an excessive amount of defects at a Boeing manufacturing plant in Wichita, Kansas, back in October 2022, according to a December 2023 lawsuit mentioned by NPR in January. A mechanical engineer with years of experience, Dean had initially been employed by Spirit between March 2019 and May 2020, when he was among the many staffers being let go by the company during mass layoffs, according to the lawsuit. He returned to Spirit in late May 2021 as a product and process verification core quality auditor. He later became a level 2 stress engineer until his contract was terminated by the company in late April 2023. In October 2022, he flagged what he said were serious manufacturing defects to management, but said that nothing was done. According to the lawsuit, Spirit concealed the issues flagged by Dean from investors until they were revealed by independent reporting in August 2023, 10 months later. The whistleblower claimed that the company had fired him in retaliation for flagging the defects at the Wichita plant using a false justification, the failure to spot a manufacturing flaw in the fittings that attached the vertical tail fin to the fuselage during an audit, as a pretext to scapegoat and silence him, the lawsuit reads. Dean had also fired a complaint against Spirit with the FAA, accusing the company of serious and gross misconduct by senior quality management of the 737 production line at the manufacturer. The investigation concluded that Dean's allegations had substance, but did not provide further details. Dean's sudden death at the age of 45 was announced by his aunt and sister on social media on Tuesday. His mother wrote on Facebook that he had contracted pneumonia in April and suffered a stroke following an MSRA infection. The Seattle Times wrote that Dean had been in good health and was noted for having a healthy lifestyle, but had died after contracting a sudden, fast-spreading infection. Barnett, that's the previous whistleblower, was found dead in an apparent suicide in March in the midst of giving depositions against Boeing, alleging that the company retaliated against him for exposing safety issues with the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. An investigation into his death is still ongoing. Now, this is a writer, reporter, blogger put together a little supplementary material on this, Champagne Joshi. I'm sure this is just yet another unfortunate, highly statistically improbable coincidence. It's a real shame because now this guy can no longer expose the manufacturing defects on the 737 MAX. From February 5th, 2024, this is from NPR. At the factory in Wichita, Kansas, where Spirit Aerosystems builds the fuselage for the Boeing 737 MAX, management would sometimes throw a pizza party to celebrate a drop in the number of problems reported on the line. But Joshua Dean says many of the workers knew something was off. Quote, we're having
Sounds like something was off with the pizza.
Maybe. Maybe that's where the infection came from, right? We're having a pizza party because we're lowering defects, said Dean, a former quality auditor at the factory, but we're not lowering defects. We just ain't reporting them. You know what I mean? Dean wouldn't shut up about the defects he was finding, and his persistence ended with being rewarded by being fired. In less than 6 months, Dean, 45, dies suddenly from a mysterious illness, bacterial infection. Okay, so we got to be a little careful how we talk about this, I suppose. The suicide, in air quotes, the self-deletion of Barnett is highly suspicious, right? Now, if you've ever read the biography of the Iceman, the notorious mafia hitman / serial killer, he talks about the way he would kill people with poisons you've never heard of, man, where he would from a spray bottle give people a heart attack. So, hey, man, if you assume that the death of Barnett is suspicious and you accept that maybe Boeing might have had a hand in that, well, it's not that much of a stretch with, a multi-billion-dollar company to think that they might have access to the kind of people who can make things look like a fast-acting disease. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Certainly is suspicious. I mean, 2 out of 3 now. You're talking about 2 out of 3 whistleblowers this year have died suddenly. It is strange. It is possible, though, and I'm starting to think because, you talk about circumstances lining up. What if God really does love America? What if God really does bless America? And what if he doesn't like people fucking with America?
Yeah.
That's a possibility. He just doesn't want people out there fucking with America. Fuck yeah! Yeah, he doesn't want people fucking with American corporations, doesn't want people fucking with the American military, doesn't want people fucking with American churches or American presidents. Maybe God really does love America, and maybe we
God's
really
on our
are.
side.
Maybe we are the damned. Maybe we are the evil ones after all. Doesn't seem like we are. But then again, most bad guys don't think of themselves as bad guys. So maybe we are the villains. Maybe God just does Boeing these favors, and maybe they didn't do anything. Maybe God is rewarding them for their great work, and maybe we're on the wrong side of history. You ever think about that? The thought just occurred to me because so many of these breaks seem to go against us and for the empire. So maybe this really is the shining city on the hill.
And
with that, we're going to welcome our guest, Professor Zenkus. No, I'm just kidding.
The principle of Occam's razor.
Yeah.
That the simplest explanation is probably the best.
Yeah.
So you could take a roundabout route to coming to the conclusion that God really likes America, or you could come to the conclusion that multi-billion-dollar corporations are not above eliminating the competition, so to speak.
50-50.
Okay, so this is kind of fun.
50-50.
Americans will pay more to avoid Boeing. They mentioned that in the article, so I went and looked it up. Okay, so a poll involving 1,000 U.S. adults who flew commercially in the past 2 years, commissioned by casinos.us and distributed by Pollfish, found that 50.22% of American flyers would pay between $50 and $150 more for tickets on aircraft they view as safer than Boeing's. Another 23.74% would pay less than $50, while 19.06% would pay between $151 and $250. That's a lot of fucking money, man. That's almost 1 in 5 say they would pay over $150 not to fly on a Boeing. Now, we've pretty well covered this, and I've mentioned my default now, so I don't have to fuck around with looking up which flight number corresponds to what model airplane, which they can swap out in the end. They could swap. You could try to take an Airbus, and they could swap to a Boeing if it doesn't work out in their schedule. So at this point, for domestic travel, I'm only booking JetBlue because they only have Airbus. And this is not to be construed as financial advice, but they just had a weak quarter. And it doesn't seem like anyone's seeing the big picture that this is the one airline, I believe the one airline of its size. Maybe a few regional carriers have only Airbuses, but it's the only one that pretty much goes anywhere you'd want to go that only has Airbuses. So I think it might be a buying opportunity. Again, not to be construed as financial advice, but I am going to start to build a small position in JetBlue because I think they are going to benefit from the horror and tragedy that, knock on wood, maybe won't come. But it seems like with this level of malfeasance and this many planes that have been built under this regime in the air, I can't imagine that's not going to come to tragic ends.
Yes.
At which point you got now. None of these situations since the Maxes, the 2 Maxes that went down, but none of the recent spate of engines catching on fire and ramps falling off the plane, none of these have led to deaths. And you still have half of people, more than half, saying in that poll, was it something like 3/4 would pay more not to fly a Boeing? What's going to happen once one goes down?
Oh, of course.
Everyone's going to be scrambling to find out, how do you only fly on Airbus? And they're going to find JetBlue.
I agree. 100%. We got 1,256 over on Rumble. Folks, hit that like button wherever you are. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that follow button wherever you are. Jake is in the house tonight because it's a night show. So a round of applause in the chat for Jake, who is fielding Rumble rants. We're going to take a Rumble rant right now. VH Sandwich, thanks for the $2. Hey, guys. A few streams ago, you said Biden defunding UNRWA was way worse than anything Trump did. Well, Trump also defunded UNRWA back in 2018. Basically, they're both scumbag douchebags. Yeah.
This fucking scumbag douchebag.
Yeah.
This fucking scumbag douchebag. They are. We actually have a segment about that tonight.
We do.
Yes, Donald Trump is not your friend. None of these people are your friends. It's you've had a lot of people, particularly over the last few years. I think a lot of people like ourselves who supported Bernie have tended to give more of a pass to a lot of people on the right because enemy of my enemy. But with the eruption of Israel's campaign in Gaza, it's really reminding you why you're on the left.
Oh, of course, yes. Well, that's what I said. I said, this whole thing has been a very clarifying period where, we actually feel comfortable being on the left again. We're reminded very strongly of what that means. And I never gave people on the right a pass because enemy of my enemy. I just, I was willing to honestly, observe areas of agreement because the people on the right, like Tucker, were on a similar journey to people on the left like us, in the sense that they were starting to realize that a lot of those barriers are put in place to keep people from talking across the aisle, if you will, right? And a lot of these barriers to the democratic process were put in place to make it so that our disagreements didn't matter, our agreements didn't matter, our arguments didn't matter. And so we were willing to reach across party lines, if you will, in order to transcend those sorts of barriers, those lines that were drawn between us on ideological lines, where we saw fit. Now, there were a lot of areas where I didn't see that fit. But the thing is, and this is what Taibbi says, I think for us to do a show like this, to rag on Republicans for being, anti-choice, it's not that it's not warranted. It's just, is it interesting to watch that? We've all been on that same page for 20 years. So I just don't think it makes for particularly interesting content.
Sure. At the same time, I think pre-October 7th, and you're not the culture warrior I am, but certainly there were a lot of cases where they were the only ones who made sense on a lot of just cultural insanity. Look, if you were looking at a lot of the DEI stuff, when Chris Rufo went into New College in Florida and they tried to pull safetyism on him when he tried to have a conference and he basically told her to go get her fucking shine box. Yeah, man, I wanted to interview him at that time. But what's happening now? DeSantis wants to shut down speech in Florida, which is not to say, look, some of the culture warrior right-wingers have been morally consistent, like Candace Owens, like Matt Walsh. Some of them have been. It's not all of them. But a lot of them, like DeSantis, like Douglas Murray, have gone the other way. And we're going to take a look at Paul Joseph Watson, who not only is making a case against the bill coming down in the House on free speech grounds, but also on the right to speak blood libel grounds, which is pretty funny.
Chris Shipley, thanks for the $5. Appreciate that. La Senora Chamonique. Hello, my loves. I am Chamonique. Wish you all my love. Thank you. That's kind of you. Appreciate that. It's a nice chat. I've been very angry, says Jax Page. Hi, Jax. Thank you for watching, Jax. Thank you for the donation. I've been very angry about what happened at UCLA. Our right to protest is gone. Free speech is gone. Thanks for what you guys do. I love your podcast. Thank you, Jax. Appreciate you very much.
But, did we ever have it? I mean, 4 dead in Ohio, which, as my esteemed colleague has pointed out, if Neil Young had not ended up such a fucking douche, that would be the anthem of the spring right now.
Yeah, that would be everywhere. Absolutely. No doubt about it. All right, folks. Here's a pretty critical free speech story. House passes anti-Semitism bill over complaints from First Amendment advocates. The Washington Post reports House Republicans are seeking to unite their unruly majority around an evergreen conservative cause, devising a strict response to the wave of pro-Palestinian protests that have roiled college campuses across the country in recent weeks. GOP leaders this week announced plans for new oversight investigations of elite universities where, in the words of House Republican Whip Tom Emmer, pro-terrorist anti-Semites are taking over. And on Wednesday, they passed the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which its advocates said would empower the federal government to crack down on anti-Israel protests on campuses by codifying a definition of anti-Semitism that encompasses not just threats against Jews, but also certain criticisms of Israel itself. We must give, so the key thing here is codifying a definition of anti-Semitism that encompasses not just threats against Jews. That would be redundant. We already have laws on the books against threats against Jews. You're not allowed to threaten anybody, right? So this is about defining anti-Semitism in such an expansive way as to encompass, well, you'll see.
There's like a bill written by the ADL.
Yeah, pretty sure you're not going to be allowed to have drafty windows in college cafeterias. That's anti-Semitic, right?
You are not. They cannot seat you too close to the kitchen.
Exactly. The soup must be kept above a certain temperature, right, at every campus.
And it can't be too
cafeteria.
salty.
And it can't be too salty or too creamy.
There can't be a draft.
Exactly. And if it's Italian wedding soup, it has to have enough meatballs in it. None of this bullshit where there's only, 3 little things of meatball. The rest of it is escarole and white bean or whatever the hell they put in there. Things are going to change around here, folks. Things are going to change around here. Okay? Not going to get away with this much longer. Don't think we don't know.
Pork is only allowed in Chinese recipes.
Exactly, where everybody kind of turns a blind eye. Yeah. We must give the Department of Education the tools to hold college administrators accountable for refusing to address anti-Semitism on their campuses, says Michael Lawler, the bill's lead sponsor. The bill was approved by a vote of 320 to 91, with a majority of Democrats, 133, joining Republicans. Lawler's bill, with 61 co-sponsors, including 15 Democrats, would create a clear definition of anti-Semitism in U.S. law that the Education Department could then use to cut off funding to academic institutions found to tolerate such behaviors. The definition, however, has drawn fierce opposition from First Amendment advocates such as the American Civil Liberties Union and liberal Democrats, who says it veers sharply into the realm of restricting political views. It's unclear what the bill's prospects are in the Democratic-controlled Senate, I think it's going to pass, or how the White House views it. Previous iterations failed to muster sufficient support in Congress, but both its supporters and opponents say the ongoing protests and a rise in anti-Semitism since Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel have injected fresh momentum. If it does become law, the federal definition of anti-Semitism, adopted from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, would include such speech as claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor. In other words, it's racist to say that brown Arabs shouldn't have had to pay for the crimes of Nazi Germany. That's now racist.
Right. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Or or you're not allowed to say that's racist. You are bigoted if you think that's racist. Pardon me if that's confusing.
Well, and the whole idea that you would adopt the language of an advocacy group and try to write it into law.
Yeah. Not even an American advocacy group. The international.
Not even American, international.
Yeah.
International. What happened to all these anti-UN Republicans?
What happened to America First?
They hit the roof when we defer to international standards, when we defer to international courts. They go ballistic about it. This is okay?
Yeah, this is my favorite one here. Applying double standards to Israel that are not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. That's the RFK
and this
line.
Is a
well,
very
you can say Israel's an apartheid state, but you have to say others are an apartheid state. So we're not allowed to single out Israel for committing war crimes without also mentioning that other countries commit war crimes. So basically, you have to normalize the horrific behavior of Israel by putting it in context that, yeah, other countries do it too. That's now required. You can't have a double standard where you hold Israel to a standard without going out of your way to mention, now, to be fair, other countries are just as bad. And in modern context, I'm sorry, other countries are not just as bad. Not to say it's a world full of angels. It sure is not. It sure is not. But I've never seen evil like this in my life, personally.
I don't know of any other ostensibly democratic country currently in the world today, not in the 19th century, not in the 18th century, not in the age of exploration. Now, I don't know any country that claims to be a democracy. We are not a democracy. Many countries that claim to be democracies are not democracies. But I don't know any country that identifies as the gender of democracy that is doing anything like this in the world today. And the idea that no other nation is held to this standard. This is one of those crazy Zionist talking points that they pull out along with the world's most moral army. That if you talk to Zionists, they'll always hit you with that bullshit. And then if you get into what they mean by that, they'll give you the nonsense, which is completely debunked, that they take such pains not to kill civilians. No other country does what they do. And that's just nonsense. And then they give up the game. They'll start talking about Native Americans. Okay, so you're admitting you're committing a genocide then, right? I mean, if you're making that comparison, then you're admitting that this is a genocidal campaign. Okay, if you want to make the argument that many nations in the world today, most notably, I think the United States, have benefited from the kinds of genocidal campaigns that your nation is built on, and they didn't have to pay a price for it because they did it at a time when that was just kind of de rigueur for imperial powers. Sure. I'm sorry that you can't transport all the Palestinians back to the 19th century and kill them. Sorry.
Yeah, Dean Phillips tweeted out something to the effect the other night, 150 countries around the world clearly born of, displacement and bloodshed. Why do they pick on the one Jewish state? And it's like, and I tweeted back, that sounds like a very dramatic way of saying you're pro-displacement and pro-bloodshed. Right?
Of course.
And
of course,
really
whenever that's how stupid these fucking people are. As soon as you say that, you're essentially conceding the core argument that anti-Zionists make about what Israel is. Right. You're conceding that it's a colonial power displacing and slaughtering a darker-skinned people. You're conceding.
If we could go back in time and try and stop all these things from happening, we would. We can't. We don't live back in time. We live now. Right? So that's the easiest argument to knock down. And drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. So the idea that you would... The idea that criticizing the actions of a state is equivalent to expressing bigotry or hatred towards the inherent attributes of a people is just on its face absurd. Absurd. We'll keep going. Several Republicans said opposing Zionism, the political movement to create and now to preserve a state for Jews in their biblical homeland, would qualify as anti-Semitism under the law in their biblical homeland. What happened to separation of church and state? Out the window on this issue. Even for a lot of liberals who hate the Christian conservatives with every fiber of their being. Out the window. Some suggested that even holding a prolonged protest, funny timing of this legislation, would constitute anti-Semitism. The erection of encampments on college campuses isn't an expression of speech. Representative Marcus Molinaro, who's from my old neck of the woods, who's the old Dutchess County, executive who ended up in Congress, said on the House floor Wednesday, it is a direct threat to Jewish students on college campuses. We've litigated that over and over again. We'll do more so later in the stream. But the double standards example and the notion that Nazi comparisons are off limits in the case of Israel, among other aspects of the definition, are deeply problematic because they're too broad and present viewpoint discrimination, said Tyler Coward, lead counsel for government affairs at the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, more commonly known as FIRE, a First Amendment advocacy organization. Nowhere else in First Amendment law does it say that you can criticize a certain country up to a certain limit, or else you might risk violating federal anti-discrimination law, he said. Yeah, that's about as obvious as it gets. The First Amendment allows individuals to criticize every country in the world, including our own, and that includes comparing other governments to the Nazis, however disturbing many Americans may find that comparison to be, Coward said. Now, here's where you know you've gone too far. We're going to give two examples of where you've seen that this gets overstepped, all right? Here's example number one. Representative Jerry Nadler, a Jewish lawmaker who has co-sponsored other bills aimed at combating anti-Semitism and described himself Wednesday as a deeply committed Zionist, urged colleagues to reject Lawler's bill, which he characterized as misguided because it threatens to chill constitutionally protected speech. If this legislation were to become law, he said, universities wanting to avoid federal investigation could end up suppressing protected speech criticizing Israel or supporting Palestinians, and students and faculty might be driven to self-censor. So, if Jerry Nadler thinks it's gone too far, it's probably gone too far. If this next person who we're going to show you thinks it's gone too far, you know it's gone too far. So here's where, hey, we got a little horseshoe theory going on, right? Not quite, but Jerry Nadler is, as Zionist a Democrat as you can possibly conjure up in your head. And then you have Paul Joseph Watson.
Okay, so Paul Joseph Watson, like a lot of people in his space, he takes great pains to, as he's talking about how the Muslims have ruined Paris, to say it's not about race, it's about culture. And, he takes great pains to say he's not a racist or he's not a culturist or so to speak. And hey, when this broke out, he was on board. He was on board with the whole look at these people who would be killed in a Muslim country. Look at the queers for Palestine. He was all on board with that. And now you went too far for him. And this is what's fascinating to me about this video, if anyone wants to check it out in its entirety. The Zionists, in their zeal to shut down anti-Semitic tropes that frankly nobody was uttering really. Some people who were already uttering them before, right? You have those people, they're always going to be around. But the people protesting for Palestine, the vast majority were not espousing these anti-Semitic tropes. But hey, man, if you're going to be a Jewish state that very blatantly buys politicians and then manipulates them or directs them to shut down speech, well, guess what? You've just hit a very old anti-Semitic trope about Jews having secret control over governments. And guess what? You pushed it so fucking far this time that you brought out a defense of blood libel that nobody was mounting until now. So let's hear what he has to say.
US Congress actually just pass a bill that outlaws criticism of Israel, even reading Bible passages. Is this the most egregious violation of the First Amendment we've ever witnessed? It's called the Antisemitism Awareness Act. But how does it define anti-Semitism? Surely with a law of this magnitude it would tell you in the actual bill, right? It doesn't tell you in the actual bill. Instead it defers to definitions created by a group called the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. And this is where it gets interesting. According to their definitions, anti-Semitism includes applying double standards by requiring Israel to behave in a way not expected from other democratic nations, and comparing Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. Right, so criticizing Israel. It gets more disturbing when you learn that the IHRA, the group behind these definitions, has routinely been accused of conflating legitimate criticism of Israel or Zionism with anti-Semitism. Outlawed speech will include claims about Jews killing Jesus. So, Bible passages then. What are you talking about? None of that stuff's in the Bible. Yeah. It is though, isn't it? In the letters of Paul, which are regarded by historians as the oldest works in the New Testament, 1 Thessalonians 2:14-15, the Jews who killed the Lord Jesus. Similar claims feature prominently in the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And
Okay, so he goes on in this video to show Matt Walsh speaking out against this, not on the grounds that he is. And he gets into how the Talmud claims that the Jews killed Jesus. So technically he's right. This law would outlaw those Bible passages. Now I want to say I use the term blood libel. Okay, so when I say blood libel, what I'm talking about is, claims that they put Christian blood in the matzah. Also using the claim that the Jews killed Jesus as a premise for anti-Semitism. However, I'm not big on pretending things are not what they are. Yes, it is in the Bible. He's right. He's right. Just like anti-Semitism is in the Quran. Okay, can we not pretend that there's no anti-Semitism in the Quran? Can we not pretend that it doesn't say that the Jews killed Jesus in a lot of biblical sources and Jewish sources? Now, does that mean they did? Well, you could interpret it as the Romans carried out the sentence, or it doesn't really matter. The way that I look at religion, I don't think that's a basis for acting on anything or deciding anything about anybody. And I also believe that you can practice these religions and you can set those things aside. Now, that becomes problematic if you believe it's the literal word of God but that's for religious people to work out amongst themselves. And I think a lot of Christians have been able to square that circle and just not focus in on that and focus on the fact that overall the message of Christianity is to love thy neighbor as you love thyself. And you can move on past that kind of thing, and you don't need to use it as a means of persecuting people.
Well,
but
of course, these people, they all
love
the Passion of the Christ. I mean, they all love that movie, and they love Israel, right? They hold two things at once, right?
Sure, and with Muslims, it doesn't just because there's by the same token, because there's anti-Semitism in the Quran does not mean you have to act on that, and most Muslims do not, because you also have the element of Jews are people of the book who keep similar customs in regard to keeping kosher and such. In fact, they are allowed to marry Jews because they keep similar customs. That's something you don't hear a lot about because it doesn't fit the narrative of Muslims inherently hating Jews.
Right.
They can't marry Christians, but they can marry Jews because the customs are close enough. You're not gonna get a pork sandwich there from your Jewish wife. She's not gonna cook up some pork rinds. But yeah, no, that is in there. But most interestingly, if you look at a lot of what he starts talking about, international organizations dictating. All right, so now you're invoking tropes that right-wingers like Paul Joseph Watson are not really uncomfortable with. That's kind of a comfort zone for a commentator like himself. So you're trying to shut down these tropes. You're reviving them. You're giving them new life. Listen, I've watched this guy for a long time, man. I've never heard him talk like that. I've never heard him talk like that about Jews or Israel. You are bringing on exactly what you say you're going to prevent with these heavy-handed tactics, which is what always happens. The censor always empowers the speech they're trying to shut down.
Yeah, and in this case, ironically, does more to foster anti-Semitism because don't forget, this is so narrow-minded and so short-sighted that these rules only apply to college campuses, right? This is a threat against college campuses. They can't just outlaw these things altogether, right? It can't all of a sudden be illegal to prefer Friends to Seinfeld, right? Like you can't say like that's the law now, right? And so you still create openings for people to have these conversations. Just ironically, people can't criticize the Israeli state, which insists that it must be a Jewish state. Notice the one-state solution people are not calling for the abolition of Israel. They are calling for the abolition of an ethno-state as it's currently constituted. They're not calling for violence against the Israeli people. They're calling for the integration of everyone on that block of land into one state with equal rights. That is the benign, normie, non-discriminatory, non-violent, non-hostile point of view. And when you do this, you crack down on speech, ironically, where speech is supposed to be the most free, right? Oh, this only applies to universities. Isn't the whole I'm sorry. I'm just a simple country podcaster, as I've said on previous shows. So I don't know what I'm talking about. As I understood, though, the whole point of these universities was to be forums for intellectual pursuit and debate. Isn't that the whole point? Like, if you don't have free speech on a public university, where should you, right?
Right.
But the point is, they can't outlaw this stuff outright, and so you're only causing anti-Semitism to fester, which ironically puts the non-Zionist JOOs like Russell and myself in more danger because you pull this fucking bullshit, which, as a lot of people are rightly saying in the chat, and I hope you're right, knock on wood. I'll actually knock on wood. I don't think this stands much of a chance in the courts if it even passes.
I would agree with that.
Meaning the Senate, and if Biden signs it, that's what I mean by
that. But it shows you what cowards these people in Congress are, except for, again, later on in the video, Watson talks about Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's a big fucking Zionist, came out against this. Matt Gaetz came out against this. Like, this is too much. Paul Joseph Watson is a Zionist based on his previous videos, but I don't know for how much longer based on this. So there is a faction of the right that you're losing. I would say, Watson is probably the furthest right person that I listen to. And you could hear it there, man, because he's making a Jews killed Jesus argument. I haven't heard anyone else take it in that direction. But hey, man, he represents a lot of people, I suspect. And you're reviving that formulation by doing this.
All right. Windy Melly, thanks for the $5. I've been listening to you guys for a while now. I can't thank you enough for the hard work you do in bringing us the news without the MSM spin. Rock on. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Let's, Jake, go to our Patreon scroll, shall we? You can become a member of this show by going to patreon.com/DoDissidents and signing up to support this program. Those of you who sign up, you are the backbone of this show. We say that in private. We say that in public because it's true. And by private, I mean when you sign up, you get 2 private shows per month, 2 supporter streams per month. You get 2 bonus shows. You get call-in access every Sunday night to our post-show question and answer sessions over on Rumble. You also get your name on the show notes, and you get live stream access to our 2 live shows in New York City, June 9th. Tickets still available. We sold a couple more for that day show, but the night show has still got that 1 ticket left. So now I think we got about 4 for the day show, 1 for the night show. Super close to selling out. So if you want it, grab it. DoDissidents.com/day show for the day show. That's 2 p.m. DoDissidents.com/night show for the night show. That is 7 p.m. You can also become a member at Substack, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals. That's DoDissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble right now, the best way to sign up for locals is to click that join button right underneath the screen. Bright red button says join. Takes you right to our locals page. There's 1,502 of you over on Rumble now. That's beautiful. Thank you guys all very much for being here, and thank you guys all for your support. Todd S., and it is the working definition. They can change it without going through Congress again. Total BS. Yes. Richard, wouldn't this law be overturned in court? I hope so. I hope so. Let's see here. Swimming is the best gift for your lungs. I wish for you not to give up on it, bro. Yeah, no, swimming is great for you. Swimming is really, really great for you to do. Christ is king. That's against the law now. That's illegal. You can't say that anymore.
That is illegal.
Not on a college campus, for sure. I don't know where you were typing that from.
Swimming is also the best exercise for your brain. They don't know why, but it stimulates cognitive ability the most.
It's very good for you. Yeah, swimming is really good because it's high output but low impact, right? You don't beat your joints up, you don't beat your bones up, right? It's also natural weight training too. It's cardio and weight training at the same time.
Every muscle group gets worked. Yeah,
exactly. Which is more dangerous now, flying on a Boeing or working on a Boeing? That's a good question, Rob Nelly. Thank you. Eric Rousseau, notice how Israel triggers fascism instantly while BLM and other protests did not. They even ignore the violent Zionist counter-protesters. This is about empire. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that very much. Abiding 71. TPDS ran static on Hinkle. Did he not duke you enough? Did he not visit you in the can? Did he not visit you in the can? He didn't duke you enough? He didn't visit you in the can? I know that reference.
All right. So let me clarify. I knew that was going to get a lot of questions. All right. So it's been a while, but I've read the central texts of all the major world religions, and as I recall, the premise of the Quran was that the Jews had broken the covenant with God, so God was bringing the covenant to them, to Muhammad and to his people. That's a pretty anti-Semitic premise, right? Like the Jews lost God's favor because they didn't keep the covenant, so you got to bring it to them. Now, does it say go out and kill the Jews? Or no, it doesn't. Like I said, you're able to marry Jews, but one might perceive that premise as anti-Semitic. That's what I mean.
The Amazing Blumpkin, to paraphrase Clint Superior in Sudden Impact, people got a bad habit of getting dead around you. How was that? That was a pretty good Clint Eastwood I did. Hello, friends.
Hell of a thing to kill a man. You take everything he has and everything he's ever gonna have.
Here's McDougal. Hello, friends.
Dueling Clint.
Long time no see. Sorry, I've been busy canvassing for our President Trump. Very sad to see the Uniparty pushing this censorship bill through. Good thing Clarence will have none of it. There's McDougal from the MAGA delegation. Thank you, McDougal. When police and army smash these protests, remember, it's not about Israel. They're doing it. But it's to show an example. If you stand up, you lose your head. I think it's about both.
I think it's both. I think Zionism as an unchallengeable premise of our foreign policy is so core to the security state. I mean, just look at what they're doing. Just look at what they're doing. They didn't do this when people protested the Iraq War.
Right.
It's so core to their whole geostrategic vision. They cannot allow people to pull back the curtain and see that we're supporting a Nazi state, that we're essentially supporting a genocidal apartheid fascist state. They cannot allow that conversation to gain momentum. If it gains enough momentum, it will be impossible to maintain that strategic alliance. And in terms of the way they see the world, that's existential.
Doc Durkin, thanks for the $5. That bill could very well become the law of the land, and yet this would backfire on the elite somehow. Care to speculate on that scenario, DD? Well, that's basically what the segment was. How it is starting to somehow backfire on them, for sure. We, I think, agree with that. Adrian Byers, thanks for the $5. Another Boeing whistleblower is no longer with us. That's right. Brett Davis, who were the counter protesters at UCLA? We're going to get to that. We got into that. So, folks, by the way, we had a great stream yesterday on Rumble. Really great stream on Rumble yesterday. So if you're not subscribed to our Rumble channel, you got to subscribe there because Wednesdays are Rumble days. We are only there. And so we got into a little bit of that on yesterday's show, but we're going to get into a little bit more of that on this stream. So sit tight and thank you for the donation. David Santucci. Hi, guys. I'm the Schlemiel who called in after the supporter stream was over on Sunday. That's all right, David. I remember you. Well, we talked to you once before anyway. Thanks for taking the time to speak to me anyway. Thank you, David. No problem. Basil Beshkov, Make America Ours Again. There's a good one. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. We got McDougal here. Also, everyone make sure to get your Trump Bibles fast because the Gospels of Matthew and Mark will soon be hate speech. Thank you.
I have mine back here.
Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Okay. Gray Raven, thanks for the $5. So we're ready to burn this motherfucker down, yet people are not coming to save us, and in fact are coming to destroy us. Mass politics, my friend. Mass politics. Saying Jews kill Jesus is malinformation, says Gavin.
I don't think anyone says technically that they physically killed him. It's the question of liability for handing him over to the Romans.
Yeah, we gave it to them, and that's our story. Our story
according to Watson, I didn't know this, but he says in the Persian Talmud, they say that they actually did directly prosecute Jesus for sorcery or something like that. I didn't know that. Actually, I would have to look into that more before I state it as a fact, because it is Paul Joseph Watson.
That's true.
It could be apocrypha. Who knows?
Russ, Muslims can marry Christians or Jews. Yep.
Is that true? Is that true? I thought it was just Jews because of the kosher thing. I thought they couldn't marry Christians because of that.
Oh,
like they consider them people of the book, but I didn't think they could marry them. But I could be wrong.
That's interesting. Okay. Why don't we, we'll go to Gray Ghost here. Are scumbag douchebag t-shirts available for purchase? If so, maybe a quick play of Russell's grandpa rap song while you show them off, please.
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, there we go. Interesting. Jake, it looked like Professor Zenkus tried to sign in and then went away. I don't know if he's having any issue, but he hasn't messaged me yet, so assume he'll.
All right, P. Walker's got an interesting take on this.
Yeah.
You know, we really need to ask someone who knows what the fuck they're talking about. Not to say you don't, but we gotta talk to someone we know would know.
There we go. All righty, folks. Well, let's go to our next segment here. Joe Biden chimed in. On the campus protests, finally opened his mouth, gave a statement on this today. And so let's go to some video here to hear his words.
Before I head to North Carolina, I wanted to speak for a few moments about what's going on our college campuses here. We've all seen the images, and they put to the test two fundamental American principles. Excuse me. The first is the right to free speech and for people to peacefully assemble and make their voices heard. The second is the rule of law. Both must be upheld. We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent. The American people are heard. In fact, peaceful protest is in the best tradition of how Americans respond to consequential issues. But neither are we a lawless country. We are a civil society, and order must prevail. Throughout our history, we've often faced moments like this because we are a big, diverse, free-thinking, and freedom-loving nation.
Oh, yeah.
In moments like this, there are always those who rush in to score political points. But this isn't a moment for politics.
Where the fuck do you get the balls?
Let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Dissent must never lead to disorder.
That's how it
money
works.
Quote.
Yep.
That's the money quote.
Yep.
That's what Martin Luther King said, right? In his letter from a Birmingham jail. Let's check this. Let's check this because I don't want to spread misinformation here. So let's read an excerpt from Martin Luther King.
It was known to walk outside of McDonald's restaurants picking up wrappers.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see here. Letter from a Birmingham jail by Martin Luther King. I'm sure this will say dissent must never lead to disorder. First, I must confess that over the last few years I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice. Oh.
You know, that is a better explanation for why we don't spend more time on right wingers than pretty much any other explanation.
Yeah,
I mean that's pretty much it, isn't it? We're more offended by people like Nancy Pelosi, who claim to be for all the good things, who are just using that to lull people into sleep, than people who are openly, rabidly against your political program.
Yeah, well, because they're happy to invoke Martin Luther King here. But what does he say here?
Yeah.
The white moderate is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. So the white moderate prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which was the presence of justice. Wow. So that seems to fly directly in the face of what Joe Biden says, that dissent cannot come at the expense of order. Dissent can never lead to disorder. He goes on.
None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Dissent is essential to democracy, But dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education. Look, it's basically a matter of fairness. It's a matter of what's right. There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos. People have the right to get an education, the right to get a degree, the right to walk across the campus safely without fear of being attacked. But let's be clear about this as well. There should be no place on any campus, no place in America for anti-Semitism or threats of violence against Jewish students. There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. It's simply wrong. There's no place for racism in America. It's all wrong. It's un-American. I understand people have strong feelings and deep convictions. In America, we respect the right and protect the right for them to express that. But it doesn't mean anything goes. It needs to be done without violence, without destruction, without hate, and within the law. You know, make no mistake, as president, I will always defend free speech.
Oh, right.
I will always be just as strong in standing up for the rule of law.
Oh, sure.
That's my responsibility to you, the American people, and my obligation to the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, have the protests forced you to reconsider any of the policies with regard to the region?
No.
No.
Mr. President,
Thank
do you
you.
think the National Guard should intervene?
No.
No. No. I've been told to walk to the door now. You know, on this question of property, and our guest is here. We're going to admit our guest in just a moment once we wrap this short piece here. In terms of destruction of property, they may be referring to the broken window at Hamilton Hall there. I just want to bring this up, too, because I think this is also very important to know. Because, you know, people don't realize, you know, people think that these, you know, they think of these Ivy League schools as these very, like, prestigious institutions, but they don't really understand quite how much money they have and how much power they have. When we talk about property crimes at Columbia University. Folks, trivia question here. Who's the biggest landlord in New York City? Answer, Columbia University. When New York's biggest private landlords are Columbia and NYU. This from December 2023, Curbed Magazine. Columbia University is the largest private landowner in New York City. The school's 320 properties, almost 8,000 living units between all these properties, are valued at almost $4 billion. Not just that, it pays very little in property taxes thanks to an exemption written into the state constitution 200 years ago. These were the eras of the land grants from England. As the New York Times reported this week, this is a fairly costly arrangement. Columbia, along with NYU, another top landlord, saved $327 million on property taxes this year alone. So they got the money, folks. They got the money. They're not hurting for money. These are massively wealthy, massively powerful institutions. They're not just good schools. That's how a lot of people think of these things. Well, it's a great Harvard's a great school. Columbia's a great school. No, these are centers of wealth and power. And of course, when the students step out of line, they're going to crack the whip on them. Now that should make a little more sense to you.
Well, this kind of ideal that they project of the Western university, a place of debate, a place of knowledge. Maybe it was that to a greater degree at one time. I'm sure there are certain professors who want to maintain that ideal. But in the end, they're businesses. They're big fucking businesses. They may as well be hedge funds with books. I mean, this is really what this is revealing.
Nowadays, the hedge funders probably get laid more than they do at Columbia too.
Probably,
right? Yeah,
you're probably right.
It's probably true. According to Scott Galloway, that's true. That's why they're out there protesting, right?
That's why to meet somebody off of a message board.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, a lot of people were saying that, this speech is a disaster for Biden because he's disavowing the protesters. He's just further alienating young voters. we will see. Time will tell. I'm not
Okay,
willing to make a prediction like that. He was obviously not going to try and win back the hearts and minds of any of these protesters with a speech like that. And so that went about as I thought it would.
Well, that's for his handlers. That's for his owners.
Yes.
But hey, man, I sent you that article. Keaton, you're such a fucking crabby bastard. I always want to bring some good cheer into your life. Yeah, hey, what you've been hoping for apparently is happening. A lot of these kids are thinking about not going back to these schools anymore.
Well, some of those were parents thinking it was not a safe space for Zionists, and some, were coming from my point of view. So we will see. But right now, folks, we want to waste no time introducing our guest of the evening. He is a professor at Columbia University who's been on campus through these past few weeks. You can find him on Twitter at Anthony Zenkus. Professor Anthony Zenkus joins us now. Hi there.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Keaton and Russell. How are you? Russell Dabular.
There you go. Great to meet you. We've been traveling in these same circles forever, and we've never actually met.
I'm going to say that name again. Dabular.
Yeah.
I'm going to, well, from now, you made it sound so good. I'll say it that way from now.
Yes.
Dabular.
Dabular. Yo creo que es muy importante aprender una lengua como español.
Yeah.
Listen, you're getting me.
Yo estudié español en la pandemia, pero no es muy bueno ahora.
Cerveza. You're getting me later in the evening after having taught 2 classes today. So it's and it's the end of the semester. So I'm a little disjointed and wacky, and I'm just warning you ahead of time. And I know that
I'm so wasted.
I know not yet. I know that due dissidence eschews that. So I hope I can be a good guest.
I mean, we're libertarian about that. We just don't partake ourselves.
Exactly.
All right.
No, you're all good. So
do your thing, man.
Our mutual friend CJ over at RBN was saying on a recent stream that you and he had been texting back and forth as these protests were going. And as I understand, were you on campus when the cops raided the campus?
No, I was not there.
So you're not there, but you were there for the protest.
Yeah. I've been there for protests on the street. I've been at the encampment a few times. They set it up on the 17th, and I was there when it was quiet and boring. It wasn't boring to me or the students and faculty that were there, but from the outside, when you looked at it, before the president of Columbia decided to call the NYPD first time, from the outside, walking past the quad, through the quad, you would see this encampment and think, it's quiet and boring. It was a bunch of tents, a bunch of students milling around. And Manu Shafiq thought,
hang on, can you explain to our viewers, anyone who doesn't know you, what your position at Columbia is?
Well, I hope it still is.
Not after tonight.
Yeah, it still is. They haven't seen this video yet. Yeah,
I assume, and look, I'm respectful. I care about the institution. The school I work with is in the School of Social Work. So my official title is senior lecturer. I'm an adjunct professor there.
Okay.
I'm adjunct faculty there. I've been there since 2017. I teach in the Graduate School of Social Work. So first of all, it's very social justice oriented, the work that I do. And, I think it's an excellent program. I care about the school. I care about the students. They're very keenly aware of injustice and are taking it very seriously. The first sit-in at Columbia regarding, the genocide and that after October 7th was by Columbia social work students in my school.
Mm-hmm.
And they sat in the lobby of the building. They were originally going to have a teach-in. And then the university said, okay, you could do it in this, as I heard the story, you can do it in this room and invite students in. That's fine. And then they last minute told them, no, you can't use the room. You can't do that. So that's the fear, right? That comes out like What if they say things that are anti-Israel and we sanction it? So the students said, okay, thank you for telling us. We're going to do it in the lobby. And they had their teach-in in the lobby. Be aware, some of those students are Palestinian who have lost family members in Gaza. One of our students has lost, last count, 14 members. And she, of her family, murdered by the Israeli occupying forces, the IOF, also known as IDF. She's Palestinian Christian. So none of her family is Muslim. Therefore, none of her family is in Hamas. So yeah, they were slaughtered, and plus friends and neighbors that they knew were killed as well. There was a famous story of a mother and a daughter executed by the IDF in the courtyard of a church. So I can't even speak. Right now, I'm at the point where I'm speaking like I text, which is not good. All these little errors. But so I'm a professor in social work there. So the students had these sit-ins, and then there were regular demonstrations on main campus, where social work is kind of up the block from main campus, a few blocks away. Main campus is the statue and the steps and the storied building behind it. And I think it's important for folks to know, right? So anything the students I know and the students I didn't know, but I've seen at protests and at the encampment, I have never once heard anything hateful toward Jews or any other group of people. So President Biden is a fucking liar, and as are his staff and anybody else that jumps on this bandwagon of anti-Semitism. There isn't a problem at these protests with anti-Semitism. And I find it very disturbing that I keep hearing over and over, these pro-Israel Jewish students don't feel safe on campus, because people do know that a large portion of our protesters, students and not students outside of the school, are Jews. Right. Jewish Voices for Peace, Columbia banned 2 groups after the protest started: Students for Justice in Palestine at Columbia and Jewish Voices for Peace. So Jewish Voices for Peace were banned from the campus. And
was this part of President Shafik's effort to protect Columbia from being cursed by the God of the Bible?
Wow. I believe that if that was a motivation, she did not verbalize that. By the way, her name is Minouche Shafik.
Well, she did verbalize that. Russell is referring to...
she said that at Congress.
Yeah, she was being grilled by Rick Allen, the Christian right whack job. I was like, you don't want Columbia University to be cursed by God, do you? And she's like, no, I don't.
And he clarified which God he meant, lest she mistake it for Asmodeus or something. He clarified. The God of the Bible? She said, no, I certainly don't want that.
Oh, she did? Well, maybe she was trolling him. And if she did, kudos for being funny. I wish I had been interviewed by Congress for that, because if I was a president of a university, they would never let me get near that type of power. But if I was, I would just say, with all due respect, Congressman, none of your fucking business. We're a private institution, and I don't recognize your authority to talk about what we do. Right. I mean, it's just an insane thing.
Well, it seems like she saw Gay get whacked, and she saw the one at UPenn. I always forget her name. She saw her go down.
Yeah.
And she just decided, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to hold my position here.
She could just go back and work for the World Bank again, because that's where she was before. Right. And
but these Zionists have a long memory, man. You burn those people.
But
a long reach.
It's for the time being, and I think that there's an inevitable shift happening, and their power is not long for the world at this point. They don't realize it. It's just like the empire defenders and capitalism defenders in our country not realizing. I mean, I'm talking about the kind of capitalism we have, like not realizing that that's done. It's on its last legs. Yeah. So there's no anti-Semitism at the protests, right? The protests aren't about hating anybody, Jews or any other group. It's criticism of a foreign government's 75 years of apartheid and current genocide going on for almost 7 months. And I find it interesting, and people need to know this, that we keep hearing, oh, Jews are unsafe on campus, and so I said there are Jews in the encampment, in the protest movement. So maybe they're saying Zionist Jews. Okay, why do those groups keep showing up at our protests if they feel unsafe? Right. Why are they did it at UCLA. They felt so unsafe, they started attacking the Solidarity encampment for Gaza. If you feel unsafe, why are you there? But they don't. Right. And look, they may feel uncomfortable, but as I tell my students, my job isn't to make you comfortable. I want people to be safe. Feeling safe and being safe are two different things. And people are saying their sharing their discomfort with the fact that for the first time, there is a widespread global criticism of a country that is used to never being criticized at that scale.
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt about that. And I want to, on that note, go to some video. We have a few different segments that I want to...
Can I ask, before we move on, can I ask a couple of questions? Because this is interesting to me. All right, so one, you're in the Department of Social Work.
Yes.
Right? So now, do you feel, and this should be a question near and dear to your heart, Keaton, do you feel the entire system of higher education is just completely broken? Because you have all these stories, particularly with majors like that, where people go to places like NYU and Columbia that charge astronomical tuition, where they take out loans to get an MSW that they could never possibly pay off as a social worker.
I can say this, though. The schools, I teach at another private institution that's not as expensive. And, first of all, it's a good department as far as the people that teach there and the work that we are involved in. But working at any university, but especially a private university, it's two different worlds. There's the world of we show up and do our classes and we meet together as faculty to try to figure out how to incorporate different things in our teaching and all. There's that world and the world of the students. And then there's it's a complete bureaucracy, and decisions will be made high up that affect our ability to teach and learn that are not okay. And then there's that other layer on top of it, if it's a private university, which is, it's a corporation, first and foremost. Their endowment is in the billions. And as you showed, Columbia is a massive real estate
landowner, yes.
And it's funny. So like being an adjunct, I don't deal with the internal politics of the schools that I worked with, thankfully. I do get the good part of it, which is to be with the students and to teach. Look, I think it's a valuable degree to have. This world needs more change agents. The tuition is just, they could take their endowment and,
Yeah, it's not a question of whether people should get an MSW. It's a question of whether Columbia should be charging that to get an MSW.
No, but I will say there's a bunch of people do get scholarships, which is good. But yeah, I've always said this. I said, like, okay, let the law school charge according to what you're going to make when you get out. I really do think they should change that. But here's the problem, and then we'll go to what other questions or the thing you were going to show. The students in the school, whether it's social work or the schools beyond it, are taking what they're learning seriously. And the powers that be never intended that to happen.
I said the exact same thing on the last show. I said you could tell how full of shit most of these teachers are, present company excluded, of course. But you could tell how full of shit most of these teachers are by the fact that their students actually understood what they were teaching them and put it into practice.
Right.
And some of the professors did not have their back. Some did. You did. We saw them locking arms to actually guard the encampment. So good on the faculty members who did that. But so many of them, including a lot of the more high-profile, espousers of social justice, like Ibram X. Kendi, where have they been? Where have they been? Where have so many of these people been?
There are some celebrity academics that have been outspoken, even from Columbia, like Jeffrey Sachs.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, yeah, he's.
I'm such a little fanboy. Every now and then I write him an email, and I'm like, I hope he reads it and answers.
Oh well, Sachs is great, but yeah, it's more on the administrative end. But what my point and what you just said is that a lot of the students took to heart a lot of these lessons that were not actually meant to be taken to heart.
I can tell you, there are a lot of faculty, university-wide, between Columbia and Barnard, which is the women's college, which is part of Columbia. There are a lot of faculty that are supporting the students behind the scenes. Faculty have opened up. You see, these students were suspended and made homeless. They had 24 hours to get their belongings out of their Columbia housing. So there are faculty members I know who've opened the doors of their homes to students and have gone and done jail support. And I'm on group lists, so I hear, and I will let you know that it is very heartening and good to know they're not just saying we agree with the politics of this. They're saying, we stand with the students.
Right. All right. Well, I want to show this video here. This is a hilarious video for those who have not seen it. Professor, I don't know if you saw this. This was the propaganda film by the NYPD that they put out, documenting their raid on Columbia University. Now, we can't show all of it because some of the music is copyrighted in the first minute. It starts out in the war room where they're planning the raid, and they actually show a guy with a Palestinian flag standing on a rooftop like this is Iraq and there's a sniper on the roof. Like, that's the tone they try to set. Unfortunately, I can't show you that because the YouTube gods will do something to the video if we do. But this will give you, this is 3 out of the 4 minutes. This gives you plenty of insight into the propaganda that we are forced to consume on a daily basis from institutions like the NYPD. This is one of the most outrageous things I've seen on social media in a while, and we are talking about a time where you see outrageous things on social media multiple times a day. This is truly unbelievable for those who have not seen this yet. This is the NYPD's film that they tweeted out, bragging about their response to the dangerous threat posed at Columbia University by the student protesters. Here we go. Sorry. Oh my God.
Dun dun.
Oh.
You got 16 bear claws in there. All you got to do is take them.
Right now, we're inside of the Hamilton building in the Columbia University. We're on the 3rd floor of the methodically going through the building, looking for
they're in the Bin Laden
student
compound
protesters that took over this building.
You see sleeping bags,
behind us, conducting operations. We're checking each floor. We're checking each door. If we come over here, you can see that they have set up sort of an encampment inside of the classroom. There's sleeping bags all over the place. And when we actually came in here, they actually had the desk barricaded up to the windows so that thinking that we were going to come in and get them.
Thorough job by ESU so far, as professional as can be, making sure everything is safe before we move on. Feel totally comfortable, totally safe with these guys.
And 100 packets of ramen in the closet. I thought these kids were rich up here in Columbia. They're eating out ramen.
The music. Look at this. Cutting open the bike lock.
Wow.
Yeah, brave. Zip tying.
Very brave. Yeah, everybody knows how rough those kids are.
There's the broken window that they're going to have a tough time replacing with the $4 billion of land grants they sit on.
All right, it's 10:35.
All right, this
We're
is my
on
favorite.
the campus of Columbia in the tent city, which you see is cleared. Just a remarkable plan and execution by the NYPD, and more importantly, these cops on the perimeter who got this secured. Special thanks to our emergency service, our SRG group, second to none. As of right now, this campus is secure by NYPD personnel. This is how we get it done.
This is not a tent city, this is New York City. It's our city. And if you're thinking about doing something like this, take a look around, see how fast we cleared it out. This could be you.
This could be you. That's my favorite line. If you're thinking about doing something like this, take a look around. This could be you. Let's play that part again, and then we'll play to the end. It's not that much left.
Campus is secure by NYPD personnel. This is how we get it done.
This is not a tent city, this is New York City. It's our city. And if you're thinking about doing something like this, take a look around, see how fast we cleared it out. This could be you.
This could be you.
The conditions in this courtyard are just deplorable. It smells bad.
Oh.
It just reeks.
It does not.
No student, nobody shops.
Smells like ground zero, only without
campus.
the dead people.
They don't realize.
Lawlessness. That's what this. We thought it was what symbolizes. And we're not going to have lawlessness in our city.
No
lawlessness. Columbia reached out to us. We came in here. We took action, and this is a result of our action. To any other individuals that want to protest, there are other ways to do it besides setting up tents and living like this. And this is not the way to get your point across.
This is not the way to get your point across.
It's not in the city. Think again, because colleges will reach out to us, and we'll come there and we'll strike you, take you to jail, like we did over here. Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
All right.
When there's something strange
Hey,
in the neighborhood. Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
who are you gonna call?
Yeah.
Tent busters.
Tent busters.
Let me just
Go ahead,
say
Professor.
this.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Those
I saw
two
you
officers-
chomping at the bit to get in there. Go ahead.
hate those people. Those two officers are Black Americans. Are they aware of the history of protest that was necessary for them to even be allowed to be police officers? That people blocked traffic, that people built shanty towns, that people occupied buildings. God fucking damn it. When people in that position don't realize what needed to happen for them to be there. Manu Shafiq, to be a woman president of a quote-unquote prestigious university. What needed to happen for that to happen? It was messy. There were protests. There in the early 1900s. There were women chaining themselves to the White House fence to get the right to vote. None of these things would be happening. These people in these marginalized groups elevating to high levels and then telling us, this is not how you do it. Fuck you.
Well, but isn't this the neoliberal vision of social justice? Diversify the elites and maintain the same standards?
Right, it is. But in order for that to happen, blood was spilled. And it was messy. The civil rights movement, all of those things, of course, have merit. The identity politics is ridiculous. But the fact is, none of those people would be in those positions if it wasn't for people breaking the fucking law.
Right.
And it's enraging. And okay, so I've been in the encampment multiple times. It did not smell at all. The only thing you would smell was the amazing food being cooked and given freely to everybody. Maybe what the cop was smelling wasn't from the encampment. Maybe it was from all those police being there, because there's an odor to that. I mean, God, all that dramatic music, and they're walking. If you didn't know what this was about, and you saw that very cool looking truck with the crane, I mean, I'm interested. What's going on in there?
Must be some insane hostage situation or like terrorists with bombs. Like, my God. And as you see the sleeping bags and the chairs stacked, we are going to...
That was amazing. That was amazing. Like, how dumb do you have to be to think that makes you look good? You know, like, those Columbia students, man, people cross over the street when they see them coming. Oh, wow, you were in some dangerous situation there.
Don't you dare. This is not a tent city. This is our city. First of all, asshole, and I'm talking to that guy. First of all, asshole, it's private property, you dick. It's private property
that they pay to be on.
So it's not.
How much does it cost to go to? What is the cost of a semester there?
They didn't set the tents up in Central Park because then we'd have a point. But here's the thing: stop telling people how to protest, because when people blocked traffic, not everybody, many people were up in arms. It's not fair to the people trying to get to work or blah, 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 blah. And okay, maybe they had a valid point. I agree with the protesters disrupting traffic. Some people don't. So then a bunch of college kids said, okay, we're going to sit on the lawn. And then these people lost their fucking minds and said, call out the National Guard. They're sitting on a lawn in a quad. And anyone who's been to college knows what a quad looks like. It doesn't interfere with anything going on the campus. And it was a designated free speech zone. In other words, that's where they wanted protests to take place.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's why the students chose it. And then the cops got called on them the first time.
Well, we just saw, so I want to contrast that with this other scene here. 3,000 miles away. So we just took a look at the NYPD's propaganda film where they bragged about breaking up a nonviolent protest, clearing out some sleeping bags, from Hamilton Hall. But the BBC reported that the California University, UCLA, calls in police after horrific acts of violence at pro-Palestinian protest. Now, this is how the media plays tricks on people. They don't outright explicitly lie and say that the pro-Palestinian protesters committed horrific acts of violence, but they phrase it so that any reasonable person reading this and not knowing better would infer that same exact thing. California University calls in police after horrific acts of violence at pro-Palestinian protests. Well, they were called out several times. Dylan Williams, I'm a BBC devotee, but this is a shockingly misleading and even dangerous characterization. The horrific acts of violence at UCLA yesterday were committed by extremist supporters of Israel against anti-war Palestinian rights protesters in a sustained assault. Please reword. To make this even worse, if you actually click on that link, it doesn't take you to an article. It takes you to like a live updates feed, right? How like when the New York Times is reporting on an unfolding situation, there will be live updates, every hour or so. Right. So it doesn't even take you to the point where you would see, oh, it was the pro-Israel people committing the acts of violence. You would never get that clarification at all. Katie Halper, who committed the violence, guys? Mehdi Hassan. Hey, we're not fans, but we're not so petty whereas we can't show this because he's right. Delete this tweet, BBC News. Horrifically misleading. The acts of violence were against the pro-Palestinian protest. We showed this footage yesterday on our stream, folks, but in case you missed it, this is quick. Here are the horrific acts of violence reported in that BBC headline.
You're going to block Jewish kids?
You're going to block Jewish kids. So these are the Zionists attacking. If you see there, it's a little hard. There you go. It says Jews for Palestine with a peace sign. These are the horrific acts of violence that the cops did not break up this night. They were called in the next day. Let's take a look.
Nope. And that is the most overt act of violence I've seen at any of these protests.
Exactly. This is as violent
They
as
didn't do anything about it.
Guys.
Didn't do anything about it.
Nope. Not a cop in sight. Not a cop in sight. There's one example. Here's the other example of shooting fireworks into the encampment. Look at that. There are the pro-Israel counter-protesters. There's the encampment. Little tent city. Boom. Boom. Those are the horrific acts of violence mentioned here by the BBC.
Right.
Just unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, when we were all with the Bernie campaign, I won't speak for you, Professor, but as I recall, you were a Bernie guy way back when. Yeah. We used to see headlines like this about Bernie bros, and it used to make our heads explode, and that was of very little consequence compared to this. Now you have victims of a genocide and people protesting a genocide. I saw a video today of a little girl describing seeing her decapitated limb on the floor. These kids are out there protesting that.
Wow.
And you got these illegitimate outlets like the BBC smearing the people who are against that as the violent ones when the facts on the ground are the exact opposite. You are here in New York with us. This was 3,000 miles away. But, Professor, what have you observed about the media coverage of the events, both on your campus, and I'm sure you've been pretty tuned into what's going on around the country, UCLA specifically, if you want to address that or whatever you'd like?
The propaganda is getting put out pretty quickly whenever there's an incident, and the responses and then getting shared widely. So the propaganda might be coming from the police or a politician, and then quickly the pundits pick up on it. That obviously, you know, and the media outlets, what just happened with the BBC and the UCLA campus, you know, and it's as if these people think that we don't have videos all over TikTok and Twitter and Instagram even. They're there and we're seeing it. So yeah, I can say very unequivocally, I told you I can't speak at this hour yet. The real violence that's occurred at these campus protests has been perpetrated by the pro-Israel counter-protesters against us at Columbia in January. I don't know if you'd covered this in the past. Students were attacked, pro-Palestine students were attacked on the steps of the main building, on the main campus, by counter-protesters with a chemical weapon that students believe is skunk.
Yeah, we heard about that. I did hear about that, yeah.
So first of all, that's terrorist attack. The alleged perpetrators are, and this is something that I think is not, it's a story that's not getting out there, are allegedly former IDF who are students at Columbia.
Yeah, I heard about that,
I'd be surprised if that's not the same case at other schools like UCLA, because many of the schools have reciprocal agreements with Israel, and there are special incentives given to veterans of the IDF to go to school. So they're coming to school in the United States, committing, not all of them are doing this, but enough of them are committing these very violent crimes. The police are letting it happen. I mean, we're seeing this before our very eyes, that there is indeed a Palestinian exception to free speech. And we're not allowed to ever be victims. We can't say we're being victimized. We can't say we're being attacked with chemicals or what we just saw, that horrible horror show on the video. It didn't happen. And the media is towing the line. And I saw that you posted about Dana. Was it Dana?
Yeah, Dana Bash. We're going to show that video next. That's our last segment with you. Yep.
Yeah. And so, so what's happening is there's an agreement among the institutions of power in the media that we are not going to allow even a sliver of humanity to be given to the Palestinian people, which is what this is all about.
Yes.
It's about them or anyone who dares to stand up in solidarity with them. All of us are not allowed. We're not human. It's a very desperate act on their part, and it's not working. And I will say this, and I know people watch different things. Crystal Ball, very clear, multiple occasions on Breaking Points has said, and the thing is, the protesters have won the argument because the majority of Americans do not support what Israel is doing in Gaza. Majority of Americans don't want to fund these wars. A majority of people that voted for Biden think Israel's committing a genocide.
So we're seeing all of the propaganda happening. It's not working. It's
However, Ryan Grimm just put out an article showing that people who get their news from TV do support Israel and don't believe that they're committing a genocide.
I saw that.
And that is because of people like Dana Bash. You watch this stuff, it's like an alternate universe that,
and the BBC.
that they're painting.
Right, because if you get your news strictly from them, you don't see the other side of the argument.
Yeah, but
if you're on the left, this is a recurrent thing. What I'm sure you've experienced and I've experienced at protests is when you're fighting against the establishment, you're triple careful not to give the media an image or a soundbite they can use to portray you as a Bernie bro, or in this case, as an anti-Semite. It's the same thing again and again and again and again. And the media just portrays the anti-establishment forces in that light, no matter what their cause is. And meanwhile, the real offenses are committed by the people supporting the establishment because they know they'll face no scrutiny.
Remember, with this crowd, every accusation is a confession.
Yes, yes.
And it's true, sadly, of Israel and the atrocities committed by their military. And it's true here with the atrocities committed by 1,000 police went onto Columbia campus. 1,000. 1,000. You would have thought, my God, like there was, like, again, if you watched the footage and had no idea what was going on, you would be panicked. Is it a terrorist? It's like, what is it?
It's exactly what I said. Almost word for word what I said. You know, Michael Tracy was on site. He tweeted out from their video. He said, I've never seen a police presence like this for anything in my life. It's more cops I've seen for this than anything.
Multiple people, Natasha Leonard, who I met way back at Occupy Wall Street. She's an excellent writer. And she said this, I've covered for 15 years, things like this, never seen anything like it.
Never. And I have to just drive this point home. I've said it a million times, but we clip these separately and we have to say it over again. Not one of those cops, nor any other New York cop for that matter, has cited one violent incident that has taken place at the hand of a ceasefire, anti-genocide protester. Not one cop has cited one act of violence, and yet you saw this military-like operation that the NYPD sells that way. We saw their propaganda film in the last segment about that.
Bizarre.
Incredible. Really, I mean, that's eye-opening. That tells you, your First Amendment, they'll roll over that whenever they want.
If these things were really happening, you wouldn't get this attack of the cry bullies. You wouldn't get the girl from Yale saying she got stabbed in the eye. They wouldn't have to make it up. You wouldn't get the woman with her "I'm a Jew" T-shirt that everyone ignored. They wouldn't have to resort to this. You wouldn't have the guy, I can't remember which campus it was, who yelled out "Kill the Jews."
And he was
a false flag.
Yeah, he was a Zionist.
He was setting him up.
For
those who don't know, because we covered this on the Jimmy Dore show when we were hosting last week, the stab in the eye incident refers to a woman claiming she was stabbed in the eye by a Palestinian protester who, it looks like, at worst, according to the video evidence, accidentally poked her in the eye when he was waving a flag around and didn't realize what it was doing.
At worst.
At worst. That's what I say, at worst. We can't even confirm that based on the video, but that's at worst, yeah.
I made a meme. Actually, I should release it, and I just have to think of the wording. And I superimposed an image of, like, a boxer's damaged eye on hers, and then showed another photo of her, without it. And it was like, what she said happened. Reality. That's the same woman who complained about the couscous. Do you know this?
No.
Oh. So she goes to Yale.
Yeah.
She, a few months back, made a big to-do on social media saying that the dining hall at Yale removed the word Israeli from the dish Israeli couscous. And then Yale students that same day showed photos of the couscous with the word Israeli on it, it's still there. And she made a big thing, like she was egregiously harmed. No, because the couscous was not, but it was. That didn't even happen. So here's a paid, well, I don't know that she's paid. Here's a propagandist coming out, and the media is putting them on.
Yeah.
And
Nobody asked. We showed that in the segment.
What's wrong
got
with
poked in the
eye?
eye. You could see there's nothing wrong with her. None of these reporters asked, well, if you got poked in the eye, why don't we see any injuries?
That's why if they have me on CNN, it's only going to happen once, because if I'm on a panel with somebody like that, or Piers Morgan, say what you want about Piers Morgan, though, he actually has had balanced guests invited on, right?
He has, yeah.
I'm glad. But the point is, I would sit there and I would just be like, your eye is fine. I think you're crazy. Like, it needs to be said. So here's the thing we're not allowed to.
And that is why you are never getting that gig.
They may not see this. So, but but more and more people will, because this show is awesome. But I do think
Thank you.
we are, if you look at the view, you mentioned Jimmy Dore. So look at the viewership of Jimmy Dore and combine it with like all these left of center, actual leftist podcasts. And even shows that are more, I think Breaking Points does serve a purpose and provide a service. So I appreciate that I hear things there that I'm not hearing in mainstream, right? Their viewership, if you look at all this world of our things together, the viewership is far outnumbering people watching CNN.
Oh, yeah.
8, 10 o'clock at night. What you're saying, though, is that audience of 60, 65 and over that does watch those shows, they do vote.
Yes.
But
disproportionately.
We know that. However, I still have this belief that a major shift is happening. More and more people the masks are off. It's just so obvious.
Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt about that. And no better segment to close on than this one. So I want to start out here by showing Dana Bash's tweet here, introducing her now legendary 3-minute monologue, which we're going to show in a second. Today, destruction, violence, and hate overtake college campuses across the country, with Jewish students feeling unsafe at their own schools. It is unacceptable, and hearkening back to the 30s in Europe, our Inside Politics show open here. As you can see, caught a pretty bad ratio on this, just 3.2 thousand likes to 6.7 thousand comments. One of those comments was from our guest, Professor Anthony Zenkus. Ignoring the fact that there are many Jewish students among the protesters is disingenuous. Columbia banned the students' Jewish Voices for Peace in campus months ago for protesting. You seem to have an agenda, and it is clearly not unbiased reporting of what has been going on. If you notice, 6.4 thousand likes for Professor Zenkus to Dana Bash's 3.2. So that is a double ratio right there. Round of applause there. Nice work.
Let me get your fucking shine box.
There you go.
I knew it was going to be. I knew it was going to be a tough fight against Dana, But I brought my A game, and I just want to thank my coach and my God.
If I kept my head down and played a good game, I trust God would take care of the rest,
right?
right?
Every time, and listen. And by the way, if you notice the tone of my tweet, it was just as polite as it could be.
Yes.
And
indeed.
Mine was not.
Russ's was not. No. But let's take a look at the video here so we can see what all the fuss is about. And we could stop. If you want to chime in at any point, either of you guys, just start talking and I'll pause the tape.
Start with destruction, violence, and hate on college campuses across the country.
Cut to cops beating the shit out of unarmed kids. I love that. The first cutaway
that's
is like,
how clueless these people
yeah.
are.
Look at this cut. Look at this edit. Who edited
Welcome
this?
to Inside Politics. I'm Dana Bash.
Somebody who doesn't agree with her.
Destruction, violence, and hate on college campuses.
Destruction, violence, and hate. All right, cut to shot one. Police beating people with sticks.
Just a short while ago at the
Okay, but this is what you have to remember. For Dana Bash's audience, they are pro-authority. So they are the good guys.
Right.
For us, we see a fascist force suppressing speech.
And Russell,
people who watch this see them defending themselves against wild protesters. Yes, sorry, Anthony.
Just exactly that last sentence you said. If the police are doing this, they must be doing it for a good
Yes.
So there is no such, like these Democrats, these people that watch CNN and MSNBC, they're not liberal. Even the word liberal, which I have a problem with, they're not even that. They're right-wing reactionaries.
Yes.
What we're seeing here, and Dana Bash, what are her credentials? Like, what was her beat?
I understand she's married to a spook.
Oh.
You mean like a CIA person?
Yeah, like a spy.
Really?
So some deep state connected person.
Oh, well, let me just say that I have the utmost respect for Dana Bash and think she does an incredible job. And
yeah, let's keep going.
Look, they haven't sent a Mossad agent after Max Blumenthal yet, so we're good. I told him that the other night.
A terrorist.
Yeah.
Oh, listen. So, but this is what we're seeing right now. Is that even the cut? They don't have any evidence of what she's saying because it's not happening.
Right.
So no matter what they cut to.
Right. Of all the B-roll,
if
there is no B-roll.
They'd use it.
Right. There is no B-roll they could cut to that actually corroborates that claim. Now, yeah, we're only 15 seconds in, so we have 2 minutes and 45 left. So let's keep going. No, you're good. You're good. That's why we got the stop button. That's why we got the pause button. No problem at all.
University of Wisconsin-Madison, police clashing with protesters. 12 people were arrested. Hours earlier, protests rocked the University of Arizona, where campus police used chemical irritant munitions to remove protesters.
Again. Like, what are you saying? She just said it again. Just so this gets worse and worse. We haven't even gotten to her monologuing yet. We haven't really gotten to the true editorial yet.
Campus police used chemical irritant
Anthony, you're muted, just so you know. You can unmute whenever you want. Okay, cool.
Around the same time at UCLA, pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian groups were attacking each other, hurling all kinds of objects.
They were not attacking each other.
No.
Do you have any video? Notice she doesn't cut to any video to corroborate that, right? They were not attacking each other. The pro-Israel counter-protesters were attacking the peaceful pro-Palestine encampments. If they had video of them attacking each other, they'd show it to you.
Pallet, fireworks, parking cones, even a scooter.
Fireworks. We just showed you the video in the last segment of the fireworks. The fireworks came from one direction. One direction. They weren't shooting fireworks at each other.
They could even show it.
The Zionists were shooting fireworks at they were shooting fireworks at each other. This is like kindergarten, where you get slapped in the face and you hit back, and they don't even hit back. But this is the teacher. I don't care who started it. Stop fighting. What do you mean you don't care who started it? Who started the fight's the whole thing. And in this case, they don't even have footage of the encampment firing fireworks at the Zionist counter-protesters. Nothing.
Before that, the NYPD was able to clear
Look.
Columbia University after
the
protesters
chairs.
barricaded themselves inside.
I hope they have the
campus
copyright for
300
this. This is
people
part of the
were
new
arrested at
propaganda
Columbia
film
and
now.
City College of New York.
It's going to be in theaters
But
everywhere
it is
next week. Can they show
unclear
that?
How many were actually students?
Just
New
wait.
York City
Hold
Mayor
on.
Eric
Again, they're
Adams.
showing the video of cops passing chairs down the stairs through a line of cops. That's what they're showing.
Remember when Rachel Maddow did that segment in 2016
I was
about the
just
Bernie
thinking
Bros
that.
being violent at the Nevada Democratic Party
Throwing
convention?
chairs.
She said they were throwing chairs.
She resorted to WWE footage because she didn't have any footage.
Yeah, they didn't have any B-roll of Bernie supporters throwing chairs because there were no Bernie supporters throwing chairs. So they cut to B-roll of pro wrestling. That's like what this is. They're like they're telling you all this violence that's being committed by these pro-Palestinian protesters. Has anybody seen anything of the sort? No. They could not find any B-roll. This is CNN with all the resources they have. They couldn't find any footage to substantiate any of what she's saying.
Well, if you had any footage, it would be everywhere.
Look,
they got one person holding a sign who may have been an infiltrator to begin with, and it was everywhere.
Everywhere,
and that's
exactly.
all they were able to come up with.
That was the sign that said that Hamas should target
the next target.
Next target.
By the way, disgusting sign. And that person, I can say, was not a member of our campus community at Columbia. I don't know who they were. I don't know what their beliefs were, but they got on campus and they were not a member of the campus community.
And they were asked not to hold the sign, and they were there by themselves, which is a big red flag, right?
Yes.
Because then you have to ask, okay, well, who filmed her and for what purpose if she was asked not to hold the sign, right?
Well, Max and Aaron did that hilarious expose on these people wearing keffiyehs who are clearly Jews,
right?
Yelling, "Yes, never forget October 7th. We're going to do it 1,000 times."
Right.
It was so obvious
that
they were just trying to smear the protesters.
So,
all right. So
I do have I'm disturbed at what seems to be a trend of people participating in events to make it look like they're being victimized. And then the media echoing that false claim of victimization.
They're so eager for that story.
It is disturbing to me. And look, I know people that disagree with me on Gaza, but that's not the behavior I see in the people I know that disagree. This is a weird thing, and I've never seen it before. We've seen Karen behavior, like the woman in the park on the guy, the black New Yorker walking his dog. This is another level.
That, yep.
This is another level, and it's dangerous because it's getting people hurt.
Yeah.
It's ruining their lives.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're getting beat up by the cops. They're getting arrested. They're getting doxxed. They're getting employment letters rescinded. Of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
People need to know there's video footage out there and also reports. So I've spoken to some students from the other night after Columbia the police cleared it out. Students were physically harmed by police, beaten, kicked. They had swollen faces, and multiple students had to be treated in the hospital. The only violence on the campus that night was perpetrated by the NYPD, who has a documented history of racism, sexism, and brutal violence, and should never have been invited on the campus because that history put our students in danger. And Manu Shafiq invited them twice in 2 weeks.
Yep.
This morning that professional outside agitators are getting involved.
There is a movement to radicalize young people, and I'm not going to wait until it's done and all of a sudden acknowledge the existence of it. This is a global problem that young people are being influenced by those who are professionals at radicalizing our children, and I'm not going to allow that to happen as the mayor of the city of New York.
Many of these protests started peacefully with legitimate questions about the war. But in many cases,
nice of you to
they
say.
lost
Here's
the
where it
plot.
gets really crazy.
They're calling for a ceasefire. Well, there was a ceasefire.
Is Adams able to send and receive emails? Because didn't the FBI take all his devices? How is he communicating right now?
That's true. He's got one of those mafia phones, right?
He's got
one
a
of those
burner.
burner phones.
He's got a burner.
On October 6th, the day before Hamas terrorists brutally murdered more than 1,000 people inside Israel and took hundreds more as hostages. This hour, I'll speak to an American-Israeli family whose son is still held captive by Hamas since that horrifying day that brought us to this moment. You don't hear the pro-Palestinian protesters talking about that. We will. Now, protesting the way the Israeli government, the Israeli prime minister is prosecuting the retaliatory war against Hamas is one thing. Making Jewish students feel unsafe at their own schools is unacceptable, and it is happening way too much right now.
I'm a UCLA student.
All right, this is the two-step that they always do. They know they have to pretend that they support speech. They always make that clear. It is, yes, you can criticize Israel, but you can't do this. And then they don't produce any evidence that they're doing anything else. They define protesting against Israel as anti-Semitic and then claim, no, that's not what I'm doing. Well, clearly that is what you're doing. What, you found some schmuck? You found another cry bully to talk about how unsafe he feels? That's not an argument. That
this isn't even that. This is the kid
can't not an argument.
He can't get to his lecture, right? They don't threaten to hit this guy. Watch.
Which actually that's questionable. I mean, speaking of Karens, we didn't get to it. There's just too much news to cover. There was video of a woman calling the police on a group, claiming they were not letting her pass, and on the video they kept saying, she can pass.
They were, right.
She can pass. We're
Right.
not stopping her. So who knows what's actually happening.
I just want to set this video up. In this video, this young student says, they're not letting me in this entrance. Anybody who's been on a college campus knows, by law, those buildings have multiple entrances on all sides of the building. That's a law. My guess, and I'm just spitballing here, I wouldn't be shocked if he could have gone into any of those other entrances, but purposely went this way to try to breach the line of protesters.
Right.
And again, this is what I mean by not satisfied that he could go about his business, had to make it that he made himself look victimized, when it is highly likely that he was not. And what it boils down to is people, it doesn't matter whether you're Jewish or not, pro-Israel, pro-genocide crowd does not like the fact that anyone at all protests in solidarity with the people of Palestine. That's the only thing that's happening here.
100%. Exactly. Perfectly put. All right, let's watch the end of this.
To go here, we pay tuition. This is our school, and they're not letting me walk in. My class is over there. I want to use that entrance.
See, look, he just said. That's what you just said, Anthony. He said, I want to use that entrance.
That entrance. Every
so
building.
He's basically admitting that's a good catch. See, because this is why, one of many reasons why we wanted you on, because I didn't know it was a law that you had to have multiple walkways to an entrance on a campus.
I mean, these big buildings.
I'm just a simple country podcaster. I don't know the laws that well. But yeah, no, that's good. I mean, he even says, I want to use. Okay, so he's full of shit. So he could get into class. They're not stopping him from going to class. Yes. This is the protest zone. Use the other entrance. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even catch that. I did not even catch that.
They keep coming to the protests and saying they're afraid. Why are you?
Holy shit!
Can I just add something interestingly? I was at the encampment one day last week when I was there. Somebody at the encampment, this was before they occupied Hamilton Hall and renamed it Hind Hall. A woman came up to me, a young woman, looked somewhat student age, with the camera. Who are you? She's asking me questions. Can I interview you? It's for my podcast. I got a weird vibe from her, but I said, okay. And she knew one of the people there wearing a vest that was supposedly working there at safety there. But I still got a weird vibe, but I said, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm already out in public saying all this stuff. So I spoke about why I was there and why the students were there and what was great about the encampment. And then the next day I saw that this account documenting Jew hate, this is what they call it, documenting Jew hate. They, it was like a little thing. They, quote, it was a hit. They really weren't the podcast they said they were. It was them. Wow. So my question is, why? And she was smiling. And I thought, I don't know if I trust this person, but it doesn't matter. Like, I said something I'm proud of. Here's the point. If it's so scary at the encampment, what are you doing walking around there for hours? I saw her there for hours, smiling. You're not threatened. You're not threatened. Nobody is threatening. They had a Seder at the encampment at Columbia. This is completely made up.
Yeah.
Wow. This is amazing. All right, let's play to the end of this. That's incredible.
I'm a UCLA student. I deserve to go here. We pay tuition. This is our school. And they're not letting me walk in. My class is over there. I want to use that entrance.
Will you let
me go in? This could be over in a second. Just let me and my friends.
Could be over in a second if you use the other entrance.
Again, what you just saw is 2024 in Los Angeles. Harkening back to the 1930s
it's just
In
incredible.
Europe. I do not say that lightly. The fear among
Hold on, we missed the money shot. Sorry, I ran over. I screamed over it.
Let me and my
Look at
friends
this.
Go in.
Listen to this.
Again, what you just saw is 2024 in Los Angeles. Harkening back to the 1930s in Europe, and I do not say that lightly.
Oh, yes, you do say that lightly. Of course you say that lightly. That's the most anti-Semitic comment I've heard from anyone so far, likening this to 1930s Europe. This that you just showed as an example, a guy being told, use the other entrance, we're protesting here. That is, in your mind, somehow analogous to 1930s Europe. That's about as anti-Semitic a comment as you can make, I think. I can't think of anyone belittling the horrors of Nazi Germany more than to say that this douchebag who insists he goes this way when they're protesting here, use the other door. Really? That's analogous to 1930s Europe.
Just so you know,
unbelievable.
Dana Bash just showed that she has not read the history of 1930s Germany. I have. I mean, there were deadly brawls in the streets. This is even between Nazis and socialists. It wasn't just Jews in the beginning. And then Kristallnacht was a night of terror. These things, those that survived, have caused deep trauma and intergenerational trauma. And it's documented and it's real and it was horrific. And this is a privileged kid at UCLA who, if he really was caring about getting to class, would be on the phone with public safety saying all entrances are blocked, but they weren't, instead of making sure somebody filmed him putting on a show for everybody. This is the best example that they have. None of the protests,
that's what made the cut. That's what made the segment.
Not what they're not saying. You go. Double
well, this is really, just one more disgusting example of how they are trying to convince America that all of a sudden I'm not using the term pejoratively in this case, although I do at times, the wokest generation in history all of a sudden spontaneously erupted with virulent 1930s style anti-Semitism. It's insane and absurd on the face of it. They cannot produce any evidence of it. They know they can't produce any evidence of it. That is why, look, if you're really trying to make that case, that's the best you could come up with. That's the best you could come up with. This kid having to use a different entrance. They can't, but they are desperate because this is such a linchpin of the core premises of our foreign policy. So I looked it up while we were doing the segment. Her first husband was Jeremy Bash, she was married to for quite a long time. He was a chief of staff in the CIA and the Department of Defense.
Wow. There you
go. And you can really see we've talked about this, and maybe you want to comment on it. If you saw a couple of weeks ago, Biden and Netanyahu seemed to be having a little tiff over Rafah, and it seemed like they made the call to the media to go after Israeli cutouts. So you have Joe Scarborough screaming at the finance minister about the Qatari cash to Hamas, screaming his head off. All of a sudden, it was on a dime. They're talking about sanctions against Israel. And then it seems like they cut some kind of a deal about Rafah in exchange for not starting World War III with Iran. And you could see the pivot in the media on a dime. The next day, Keaton said it was like we were back in October. It's about the college students. It's the campus protests. The week before, they were talking about sanctions. The week against Israel. The week after, it's this.
And they sanctioned the settlers, like 4, in the West Bank, and then I think they took it back. They sanctioned, the Biden administration sanctioned a special unit in the IDF, but I think they've walked that back as well. This was a specific unit, I believe, of Orthodox folks, or very conservative, but it was a specific unit that was known for its horrendous, horrible torture. But we have a problem, and the media's coziness with the law enforcement and with government and intelligence agencies, it's so obvious, and there's real damage being done because of people like Dana Bash. So let's look at, you're an older person, you watch CNN, you're Jewish, you live on the Upper West Side. You like to walk down, you've lived that neighborhood your whole adult life, and you like to walk down to the corner shop to get some food. And now you're afraid because Dana Bash said Columbia is oozing Jew hate.
Right.
You're doing no favors to those folks by drumming up that level of fear. And now, or somebody sees a younger looking person of student age wearing a keffiyeh. They're going to think, oh no, a terrorist. The level of irresponsibility in this journalism, I had a student right after October 7th who was hijabi, and she said to me, I'm not wearing my hijab. I don't feel safe on the train. She goes, this is New York, but she wore a little black cap under a hoodie. She's like, I can already see people staring at me. This is a gross level of irresponsibility of the media and complete ignorance to historical facts. Norm Finkelstein could have a field day with Dana Bash because he knows the history of the Holocaust in Nazi Germany. He knows what happened.
This Ava Braun look-alike dingbat wants to come on here and say it's unsafe on the Upper West Side. I will escort Dana Bash to Zabar's any day she likes. Call me up, sweetheart. I'll see you over there.
My God.
I don't know. Dead on, right?
I have no words.
Go.
I should have known. I'm like, this is not going to be my normal interview. I feel very comfortable with you guys in a very romantic way, in a sense.
Well, why don't you come to our live show? Why don't you come see us?
Yeah,
we're going to be live in New York.
June 9th.
I feel love. Oh, where's your live show?
At the
June 9th
Club in Hell's Kitchen.
I actually do have something to do June 9th. Unfortunately, otherwise I would be there.
Won't be the last one.
Won't be the last
We
one.
hope. Depending on how
I want
it
to
goes.
say,
If they throw eggs at us, it might be the last one.
Yeah, exactly. It might be the last one.
If we get egged.
I need to get just to say what I am doing is it's Long Island Pride Day. They have their own Pride Day, and why that's important, because there is a little bit of, on certain circles of the left pushback. And let me just say, some of my favorite people in the queer community I see at these protests, who are very much pushing back against the genocide, against apartheid, against the Democratic Party line. And I just want to see more acknowledgement of that. And just because Democrats chose to use identity politics, which they don't really believe in liberation for anyone but themselves and their wallets, that doesn't mean that so, for instance, one of my favorite radicals in New York is a drag queen named Lady Bunny, who follow her on Twitter because she's and Instagram. She's vehemently like bashing Biden on a daily basis and the Democrats, and is very anti-genocide. And she's been on RuPaul's Drag Race. And the thing is, I remember when Nancy Pelosi came out on RuPaul's Drag Race, and I'm like, well, that's the end of drag, because the most hated politician in the world just soiled a beautiful art form with the state of her establishmentness. There's radical people everywhere. So yes, I will have to miss it. I'm sad.
There are.
So
I think
you're breaking up. I think. Are we losing you?
You went Max Headroom for a second.
You're back. You're good.
I think those voices are really suppressed. I mean, it's interesting. You go back and you look at the Stonewall era, and a lot of the leading gay rights figures had well-developed economic philosophies. You had a lot of Marxist gay activists, and that, sure, it exists, but it doesn't exist in a very visible form. It seems like, and you could probably speak to this better than I could, but it's something we've definitely talked about a lot. Academia and the media elevate the people who are useful to the establishment.
Absolutely.
Those are the academics and the intellectuals who get elevated, the ones who are going to put forward ideas that are not going to threaten the establishment in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was reading a history of Stonewall. My God, they were radical. And yeah, one of the people that became in the vanguard of, I won't even say leader because it was a spontaneous thing, but one of the people that was in the vanguard of the resistance against the police, the NYPD during Stonewall, was a member of the communists and had that whole history. Right. So yeah, there's a lot of overlap. Right. And it's really interesting. And those folks, there was also a lot of, and now in the queer community, there's this the LGB minus the T people who are we're against trans and all of that. And it was trans people who were also at the vanguard of that resistance against the police, and drag queens beating cops over their head with their spiked heels. This happened. Well, yeah, they were radical. And so what's important is, and I just saw India Moore has been, who's a trans non-binary actor who's been on a bunch of shows, including Pose, which is now on Hulu, but it was from FX. It's a really good show. And they have been at all the protests, have been live streaming it. And, that's going to affect their career in Hollywood. But there are people who are willing to put it on the line. I'm not a celebrity, right? I'm an adjunct. I live or die based on my every year.
After this appearance, though.
This is one of the less. I did call a cop an asshole, but he is. He's an idiot. If I
think you did great.
I'm always holding back. But when somebody, I'm not about celebrity culture, but look, I think Cornel West has run a shit campaign, but I know he meant it, and he wasn't grandstanding when he jumped over the fence with the Columbia students and gave that rousing speech. I know that this is something he's talked about for a long time, so I appreciated it. When AOC, the fraud, came onto campus, it was It was inconsequential to our movement. We didn't invite her there. But like I said, somebody like India Moore, she's not a huge star, but she's big. They are big enough, comes out and stands up and was with the students, not just once, but multiple times, and has been at every within our lifetimes protest in the city. It's important. I'm waiting for we can't wait. We can't wait for saviors. That's the thing. We've got to do it ourselves. There's protests every day in New York now. So you guys are in New York?
Well, Russ is in the city. I'm in Albany. But yeah, Russ lives right
I'm
near.
very close to Columbia.
Right near Columbia. He was in L.A. hosting the Jimmy Show, or else he'd have been there. He was in L.A. while this all was happening. Yeah.
Likely story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have documentation. Check YouTube.
I was on the flight watching on CNN as the police were raiding the other night. I just got back.
Yeah, no, I know. And you're great on the Jimmy Show. Jimmy's great on the Jimmy. Jimmy doesn't like me anymore, but that's a whole other thing. But it's fine. I still watch his show. He is still, I think, the single most eloquent critic of the Democratic Party out there. He's an invaluable.
Well, we'll put in a good word for you. We'll see if we can. If we can mend that.
Not everybody has to get along. It's just it is what it is. But I will say this: that there is people need to go to protests if they can, if they're safe to do it. They need to see what's happening. It's just
you have to get out there. You have to get out there, and it's all hands on deck. Whoever shows up, except for the Democrat ops. Like when AOC shows up there to manufacture consent for voting blue, that's different. That's different. But other than that, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I said this on was it CJ's show the other day that somebody had said that the leadership invited. That's not true. She got on campus, and we don't prevent anybody from walking into the encampment, as is evidenced by the undercover.
Should have told her to use the other entrance at least.
They won't let me.
This entrance is no good. When she goes to the other one, you move to the other one. No, go back to that one.
Somebody swiped her in. So
that's the purpose of people like AOC. I mean, they're just there to sheepdog people inside the Democratic Party to give them the illusion that they have representation and a voice there.
Hey, look, Jimmy continues to talk about the fact that he platformed her early on, and
Russell volunteered for her early on in Queens.
I was volunteering for her when she was still a bartender.
Yep.
We were and we were we were all emotionally moved watching her shock when she won.
I remember watching that footage. Yeah,
especially after, because it was so close to what happened with Bernie. We didn't think we could actually win.
Yeah, exactly.
So, oh my God, we could actually, this whole tactic of building a bench like the post-Goldwater Republicans did, culminating with Reagan, we can do it. And then it just all fell apart very quickly.
So to bring it down to the reason we're here. So I know you're wrapping up, but when the Iron Dome vote happened, and my fear with the Iron Dome, not that I don't want innocent civilians in Israel to be protected from rockets. Of course I do. I don't want kids or adults to die.
We should give every country one. Why doesn't every country have one?
I said that. Why can't we all have Iron Domes?
Yeah, why can't we all have Iron Domes? I don't understand that.
My concern with it was that it was going to give Israel impunity to attack and not have to worry about it.
Well, that's why every country can't have one. Right? I mean, that's why. Yeah.
Right. And it's not perfect, as we see. Things can get through it. But the point is, she cried when she had to vote present. And you saw Nancy Pelosi walk over her and speak to her. And I wonder what she said. And I wonder, there's the moment where the only words leaving AOC's lips to Nancy should have been, fuck off.
I have often said, and people have disagreed with me about this, a lot of people have gone into her background. They say she's always been an asset. My read is that's the moment they broke her. That was the moment. She was never the same after that.
Dude,
that was it.
You can leave Congress today. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. When they say she's an like, I don't know that that's true. I don't need to look.
I don't reject it out of hand. People have sent me some stuff, but I mean, sending me a tweet storm about it doesn't mean I'm gonna say, "Oh, well, that's true." Then
With
you
anything,
have to show me more than that.
With anything that's a conspiracy, my attitude is, I just had a conversation with my friend the other night, who's a little more prone. Notice I'm not saying the word conspiracy theory. I'm saying to believe there are conspiracies out there, but anytime somebody thinks, oh, this might be a conspiracy, my response is, unless there's hard evidence, it doesn't matter to me. I want to look at what we do know. And what we do know for sure is this is all shit, right? Like, we don't need the background of whether or not AOC is a spy or affiliated with the intelligence community. That doesn't matter right now. What we do know is she hasn't stood up for justice. And when given the opportunity to choose the right thing, which would have been to vote no on the Iron Dome, she didn't.
Right.
She voted
exactly.
Right.
When she had the choice to force the vote for Medicare for all, she had a choice, and she made a choice, and she didn't choose us.
Right. No, of course. That's all that's really what it comes down to, right? I agree with you. I don't think it matters as much, the backstory, or you can read it according to what it is. And that's not to say that these other questions are unimportant, but you have to deal first with what you know.
Right.
And if you can reach a conclusion that's as certain enough based on what you know, at that point, it's not to say the other stuff doesn't matter, but you have what you need to form an opinion. Yeah.
This comes out a lot, and I think with with the whole QAnon thing and sex trafficking rings. Like, I worked in the field of child abuse, so I know sex trafficking rings are real, right? But whether or not there was a sex trafficking ring run out of a pizza place in Washington,
exactly.
D.C.,
it becomes a cartoonish version. Right. You have
when
a cartoonish version.
we
right.
know there literally was an Epstein Island. Like, so that is real.
Right. Yes. Yes.
And I think when it comes to this war, too, between us and this other side on the Israel issue, we know what's real. We know what's real is that probably far more, the undercount is, Hamas's numbers aren't accurate because they're undercounted. That's, anyone who knows anything about this genocide knows that. Thousands of
30,000 for a long time. Yep. All right, well, Professor, we got to let you go because we got a bunch of super chats to get to and some other stuff. But thank you very much. No, you're good. It was great to meet you. Thanks for giving us so much time. We appreciate it, and we'd love to see you again soon at Anthony Zenkus on Twitter. That's where they can find you. Thanks so much. It's great to meet you.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you very much. I hope to meet you in person. We're very close.
Yeah, no, I'll be stalking you soon. See you soon.
You got it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Anthony Zenkus. Round of applause in the chat for Mr. Zenkus there. Great guest, great program this evening. We got a bunch of super chats, though, to get to, so we're not going anywhere. Don't you worry about that. Randy Trestrail, thanks for the $10. Appreciate that very much. Eric Torres, everyone who voted yes has committed treason against the Constitution on the anti-Semitism bill. Yes, agreed. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Paul Joseph Watson's video is significant in that Europeans are usually all up in arms about the heavy influx of Muslims in recent years, and generally we're more sympathetic to Israel than Palestine. Yeah, that was Russell's point, for sure.
Yep, exactly.
Sorry,
I got news.
Yeah, we sold out.
The evening show is sold out.
We just sold out. Just that ticket order just came in. So the 7 p.m. show is sold out. Shout out to Steven. I won't say your last name. You got the last one. So there you go. 7 p.m. is now sold out. So now we got tickets for 2 o'clock. There you go.
Well, we got 6. We got 6 at 2.
6 at 2. There we go. Beautiful. Philly Jimmy, YouTube buried you guys. Took forever to find you guys, even though I typed your channel name in search and heard of you from Jimmy Dore Show. Well, what else is new? Thank you, Philly. Appreciate that. I wanted to say something horrible about the establishment in general and libs and conservatives in particular, but the algorithm won't let me. Yeah, with the comments, everything, all that stuff, it's getting real brutal now. I know people. We're not the only channel who have been noticing it. RBN has had comments turned off on their videos as well. Carrie Mache, Muslims can marry anyone with a book. I am Native American, so it was an issue. Oh, okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Of the book.
All right. A lot of people seem to be saying it, so I guess it's probably true.
People are saying,
but not like a Buddhist or a Hindu. Like, has to be Christian or Jewish, I assume.
Right. Eric Torres, here, I thought Bush was the most evil president. Yeah. Well, Biden's giving him a run in this realm. That IHRA definition was a major part of the campaign to depose Corbyn as the Labour Party leader. Interesting. It's turning into a very useful document. That's interesting. That is interesting to know. I will look into that further. Thank you. Brett Davis, thanks to the 199. Bill Clinton called Trump, encouraging him to run. Of course. Yes, we know that. Monkeys Putum. It's incredibly disconcerting to see a world leader walking like he shed his pants. Yes. He does have that gait about him, doesn't he? Did you know Matt Gaetz is Jewish? Yeah, he's got to be, I would assume. With the name Gates, right? That's a Jewish name. Gaetz.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Is he Jewish?
Yeah. I was at Columbia, very ugly, full peak, incestuous coddling of Zionists with cops, especially at UCLA. Trump said it was beautiful to watch cops occupy Columbia. We will go after incumbent scumbags. Yeah, we were going to get to Trump tonight. We didn't. We'll do it on Sunday, though, because he chimed in on this in a way that was not
sure
good.
I'll have more to say by then.
Yeah, believe me. Not good. Believe me.
Not a dissident.
Yeah,
he is not a dissident.
Yes. Indeed. McDougal, thanks for the $1. Catholics quite literally pray the Nicene Creed every Sunday and know that Pontius Pilate famously washed his hands in protest of the judgment of Jesus from the Pharisees. Yes.
This is why I'm saying, man, can people just be honest? Can people just be honest? Don't pretend that's not in there. It is.
Yeah, it's
now
there.
let's move forward based on reality.
Barad Disatva, thanks for the $20. It's kind of you. A little bird told me that the Boeing problem is part of a larger systemic problem affecting quality control inspection across all industries, which for the last decade has all been a managed fraud.
I was reading an interesting article. It might have been The Atlantic, actually, that really broke down how Boeing went with the whole trend of industries. Maybe that's part of what you're talking about, towards outsourcing what they had always taken great care and pride to do in-house, actually build airplanes. They did the Wall Street thing. They subcontracted it to Spirit Air and then offered them a very low amount of money to do it in order to juice the stock price. Okay, so they've got to come up with these plane parts at a very low price. How do you think that's going to end up?
Yeah, exactly. All right, folks. We got more super chats and Rumble rants to read here. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button and that follow button over on Rumble. 1693 strong in the YouTube and Twitter audience. 3,038 over on Rumble. How's that?
Really?
3,000 over on Rumble. Yeah, well, they put us on their editor picks again. We're on the homepage again, so shout out to Rumble for helping us out there. Round of applause for Rumble, everybody. Regarding religion...
Guy's got something about the pizza thing. Is this about the low moisture mozzarella?
What's that?
I heard it in the Pizzagate thing, they used low moisture mozzarella.
Oh, yeah. Regarding religion, make sure to avoid misinformation. Bible has dozen translations with different verses. Lucifer is either Satan or Babylonian king. Thank you, SB. I always argued on the merits of atheism. Chow from Canada. Chow. Thank you. ACAB still rings true. Empire Security Forces at work. Yeah, you're not kidding. What does Keaton think about the Robo-Dogs? I love the Robo-Dogs. We did a segment on those Robo-Dogs, Ristos. Don't you recall that? That was one of my favorite segments we've done in a while, was the Robo-Dogs. Jake V. My wife of 15 years is a practicing Ismaili Muslim, and I'm a white Christian dude. She migrated from India, and as of 2019 is a citizen of these United States. Awesome. Congratulations.
Well, are you aware in the Punjab you're not actually married?
Is that, yeah.
I'm making it up.
Making it up. Corn Pop ran Skag with Pleasant Avenue Crew in 67-68. Thank you, abiding. As an Elizabeth
Nice
Warren
reference.
I like this. As an Elizabeth Warren Jew, I obviously deeply know the issues. Seriously, aren't Jews Zionists suicidal? Once Israeli is only Jews, don't they know that the U.S. evangelicals are coming for their heads? That's what we say. They're Jesus bait. All right, that's our theory.
Yep.
This is a great ad for ending qualified immunity. Yeah, that NYPD thing. Yeah, that was wild, wasn't it? Looking at all those beer guts on NY's finest, you can say that they all called him. Yeah, can't read that, but yeah. All right, thank you. Singing bicycle. Oops, what did I do to singing bicycle? Did I get rid of that by accident? Singing bicycle, I might owe you $1 because I think I got rid of your super chat by accident. I apologize. I see what you're doing here. You're doing Nick Adams. I think Dana Bash is attractive despite her views, which are awful. Is she the best looking anchor? No. Would she make a stupid comment at Passover? Probably. On balance, she's probably mid.
Mid.
She's mid. Yes. Good one, Kenman G. His Highness, remember that scene in Schindler's List? The Nazis wouldn't let a Jew use his preferred entrance. I'm sorry, it's just too horrific to even think about. Yeah, no, that's 1930s Europe.
That poor kid.
Yeah, unbelievable.
That poor rich kid.
Yeah, had to use a different entrance. Christos, robo-dogs will kill if they get ordered to, but a human will have second thoughts. Keep that in mind when you answer my question, please. I said I like robo-dogs. I didn't have to think twice. No coercion necessary. I love those things. Who doesn't love those things? Protests should be quiet, orderly, and pose no threat to the establishment. Abby Hoffman, 1968. Thank you, Where's Kill? Kick ass and chew bubblegum, 666, says Jofus Oglethorpe. Appreciate that very much.
We're all out of bubblegum.
All out of bubblegum. Well said, Professor. Thank you. Yes, the professor gave us a lot of time tonight. That was great. Susanna, do you guys have a show schedule or is it just random? Can't figure it out. Love the show.
Things have been a little crazy this last couple months.
Yeah, things have been a little crazy the last while. No, our regular schedule is Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 2 o'clock, Thursday mornings usually at 9 a.m., and then Sundays 7 p.m., all times Eastern. Now, in the event we have to change something, we try to keep to that as best we could. This week we did, except for this show. But if you join our Substack, you can go to dudissidents.substack.com and join for free. It's a free newsletter where we'll send out every Monday the show schedule for that week. So this way you'll know. But we're going to, hopefully, it's the same almost every single week, which is Tuesdays at 2 o'clock on YouTube and Rumble, Wednesdays Rumble exclusively at 2 o'clock, Thursday mornings at 9 a.m., and then Sundays at 7. Thank you, Susanna. Appreciate it. The NYPD radicalized them. Free Palestine. BDS. Thank you, Uncommon Magic. Appreciate that. Multiple entrances and exits is fire code. Yes. Remember
exactly.
Yeah. What's the name? That's the triangle. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Yes, indeed. It makes sense. There'd be different entrances to the building, but I know that there's walkways and stuff. That was
when Tusker comes, I promised her a little commie tour, so we're gonna go there.
Speaking of Tusker,
the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory.
Yeah, there you go. That's right near Washington Square Park. It's a very good neighborhood. First they came. I can give you some fake ghost stories to tell her about that building. I know you like telling fake ghost stories.
I know all
so
those fucking fake ghost stories.
I can give you some good fake ghost stories to entertain her with at the Triangle Shirtwaist.
I don't think that's what she's interested in.
Yeah, make it a little fun. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Pastor Martin Niemöller. Thank you, Tusker. Appreciate that. We have both a day and night show, Professor. Maybe you can make the matinee. Yeah, I was going to say that, but then that would put him on the spot further.
It sounded a little like he was going to be out of town or something.
He's going to be on Long Island. You got to leave early to get out to Long Island by the afternoon. Traffic. What's the name of the book Russell opined about on the mobster who poisoned his enemies? Please find out for me. I'm unaware at the moment. Thanks,
that is. Keep reading. I'll find it.
All right. Okay. The Dems let AOC in the party because she is such a good actress, says Tusker. Thank you. I need a SC refund for promoting your night show since we sold out. Congrats, boys. Thank you, Tusker. Thank you, Tusker. Absolutely. Yes, we are sold out the evening show. That's fun. Okay, let's go here.
Might be the Iceman Chronicles.
That makes sense. I mean, he was called the Iceman. They made a movie about him. You go. Michael Shannon played him. So you can watch that.
Yeah, but the book is so good. I read it twice.
Oh, wow. Breaking. ADL gets Beetlejuice sequel canceled, claiming its title is anti-Semitic call to violence. Yeah, good one. Thank you, Ryan Clark. Appreciate that. For Keaton's Norman impression, love you guys. Thank you, Jones. Appreciate that. Yeah, Norm made an appearance this evening. Didn't know. You never know when he's going to show up, you know. Never know when you're going to get the inspiration. Keaton, call into Jimmy's show as Norm Finkelstein. It's so good. Thank you, Luis de la Cruz. Appreciate that. Norm will probably make an appearance at the live shows too. You know, not Norm himself, although maybe we'll invite him. But I think Norm is going to want to come out for a minute there.
Basically, look, we figure this is the first time we do it, so you know we could have technical difficulties, and we don't want to be embarrassed in front of high-profile guests.
No,
so next show.
I mean, the Norm impression is going to come out.
Oh, the Norm impression.
Norm
absolutely.
is going to be there. Norm will make an appearance.
Okay, I believe this is the book. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Oh, there you go. All right, cool.
And on YouTube, because HBO, before they had The Sopranos, this was one of the first kind of hits they had. They did a bunch of interviews with him. So it's like the Iceman Confessions or something. You can find those on YouTube, like interviews with that guy.
Christos, oops, sorry, I missed it. Robos, I'll look it up. Oh, no, you got to watch our RoboDog segment. That's one of my favorite segments that we've done recently. Yeah, got to catch that one. That was a good one. That was a fun one. Foregone Books and stuff. Steve in the East Village, I got the last ticket. Hey, look at there. That's Steve from the East Village. Just bought the last ticket to the night show. Round of applause for Steve in the chat, everybody.
All right, Steve.
Good job, Steve. Good purchase, Steve. We'll see you there. Okay. Here we go. It's a regular crystal knocked on campus, says Sparky. And last question of the night comes from Rhino3996 on Rumble. He asks, does this show end? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It ends now.
Never.
Yes. The show ends now. Folks, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for filing in on this primetime edition of the Due Dissidents podcast. We have over 3,000 watching on Rumble now. Please hit that follow button over on Rumble there if you're watching, if you're new here. And hit that subscribe button over here on YouTube. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
All right. That sounds interesting. I'll check it out.
All right. Let's close the lights on this stream. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate you all. We will see you all on Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. That is the next time that we will be live here on this channel. Russell will be at the Dissident Dialogues Friday and Saturday in New York City, so we'll probably have some footage to report on from there. Well, we'll definitely have some footage there to show you guys on Sunday, but we will see you all there. Thanks to Jake in the chat, in the booth, rather. Sorry for helping us out. Appreciate you as always, Jake. Round of applause for Jake on the way out. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. We will see you all back here Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, be safe and be well. Thank you very much for tonight.
Courage.
Please clap.